The meeting of Subcommittee I on Social Welfare and Development under the Mother Committee of Finance here in the Senate. And we recognize herewith the presence of Senator Tolentino, and I think Senator Ontiveros has also manifested her desire to join us. I call on the committee secretary, Beth Agas, to please recognize and acknowledge the different resource persons who have kindly joined us, including the secretary himself. Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to the Senate.
Good morning, Senator Amy Marcos and Senator Tolentino. For today's budget briefing on the Department of Social Welfare and Development with us, actually in this room are 76 resource persons, but only a handful will be called as they are presented in the table. From the Department of Social Welfare and Development, we have Secretary Rex Gatchalian. We have Undersecretary for Operations, Monina Josefina Romualdez. We have Undersecretary for GASSG, Mr. Edward Justin Orden. The Undersecretary for Pantawid Pamilya and NHTS, Ms. Vilma Cabrera. The Undersecretary for Innovation, Mr. Eduardo Punay. The Undersecretary for External Affairs, we have Rowena Niña Taduran. The Assistant Secretary for Statutory Programs, Ms. Ada A. Colico. The Director of the Financial Management Service, we have Director Wayne Bilyazar. From the attached agency, we have Executive Director Angelo M. Tapales for the Council for Welfare of Children. We also have Undersecretary for the National Authority for Childcare, Ms. Janela Marie Estrada. We have ASEC for the National Authority for Childcare, Areso T. Jam. We also have Deputy Director for Juvenile Justice Welfare Council, Maricris Calipho Cabural. The Executive Director for National Council on Disability
I'm sorry,
Affairs.
if it's possible, would you please raise your hand? Because I didn't recognize who was representing juvenile justice. Thank you. There's quite a few questions. Thank you. Okay. Proceed. Salamat. Pakitaas lang kamay para nakikilala namin kayo.
For Executive Director for the National Council on Disability Affairs, Mr. Juniro Fradejas. From the supervised agencies, the lead convener is Mr. Lope B. Santos III.
No, you mean the NAPSI.
Yeah. From the National Commission on Indigenous People, we have Chairperson Jennifer Pia Sibuglas. From the Presidential Commission for Urban Poor, we have Chairperson Elpidio Jordan Jr. The Budget and Management Bureau is represented by Assistant Director Mary Grace Darunday and their legal service attorney Madeleine Marys. From the Organization Classification and Compensation Bureau, we have Chief BMS Paul Vincent Perocho and BMS 1 Ina Sofia Canape. The department...
Ampo kayo? Si Canape?
Ayun.
Po?
Ayun, Senator.
Okay.
And from the liaison unit, we have...
Layo-layo naman ninyo. Lumapit naman po kayo. Kung resource person kayo, kailangan nakikita eh.
And last but not least, we have PDO3 Renato Asi Jr. That's all, Senator.
Sino yun? mas lalong malayo. Pwede kang lumapit kung resource person ka. Daming upuan dito, please, please come forward. We need our resource persons to be seen and heard. Halina kayo, please. Ba't kayo nagtatago? Okay, staff, kung maaari, lagyan lang ng pangalan para nakikilala. Ang dami pang upuan. Paspasan lang ng konti, maraming ahensya. So, to repeat, sino yung Madeline Maris? Yeah. Sino yung Paul Perocho? Ina Canape? Ina Canape, please. Wala. Pwede ba?
Tabi-tabi sila, Senator.
Okay. At sino si Renato Asi? Ganun ba yun? Kailangan tabi-tabi. We recognize the presence of our minority senator, Risa Ontiveros. Thank you very much. And with that, I'd like to open for any remarks from Senator Tolentino as well as Senator Risa Ontiveros, if any.
Just came here, Madam Chair, just to listen and probably add some inputs and questions related to how the food stamp program, which still in its toddler stage, can address the latest survey would be around 15%, estimated 3.9 Filipinos experiencing hunger next year. So just some questions relative to that. Later, probably I won't be here. Just a heads up to the leadership of DSWD as well as perhaps you can discuss this internally amongst yourself. The Kasambahay law. I just happened to detain an employer yesterday and stemmed from the non-implementation of the IRR on the part of the SWD. So the department should likewise be aware of this, perhaps submit to this committee a status report on a number of cases filed because there used to be a joint memorandum circular circa 2015. Matagal na yon, baka nagkalimutan na. How are you still, if you're aware of it, how are you implementing it? And then probably, just for the record, a brief answer later on the dormant cash account flagged by the Commission on Audit, which has been inactive for 5 years or more. Yun lang siguro na patutukan yan. And then, question on, siguro secretary later, kahit wala na ako, being rice assistance to, rice subsidy to retailers, saan nakuha dito yan sa existing budget? And for next year, will it still be implemented? Yun lang siguro ang gusto kong i-clarify, Madam Chair. But I'm supportive of the efforts of the department. Sana makabalik ako. Kasi lilipat ako sa kabila and then lipat ako sa Cavite ulit for the ROTC Games. Mamaya. So yun lang po,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you very much. And perhaps the secretary could address that first, even in the presentation of the budget. And we call on Senator Risa Ontiveros if she has any opening remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Wala naman pong opening remarks, but later, after the hearing, I'll just take the opportunity in a few minutes to personally thank the good secretary for the early action of the municipal Social Welfare and Development Office, and recently, all the way up to national now, on the subject of my recent privilege speech, and just follow up with him progress that we hope for moving forward. Salamat, Secretary. Salamat, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that, we invite Secretary Rex Gatchalian to give us the highlights of the DSWD budget. As we well know, aside from the food stamp program and other recent initiatives, the senators are very familiar with the budget, so we'd appreciate your keeping it short. I guarantee you that a lengthy presentation will necessitate reductions. Baliktad yan dito eh.
Madam Chair, good morning, Senator. Madam Chair, good morning, Senator Hontiveros, Senator Tolentino. Madam Chair, ayaw ko na humabawasan yung budget. If you don't mind, so that we can get into the questions of the good senators, we can submit the whole presentation to the committee in writing so that we can.
I think we're in receipt.
And then I would, if you don't, if the chair will allow, I'll just enter that into the records as the official presentation so that the good senators can start asking. Given that, as you pointed out, the senators are very well versed with the details of the budget. Unless you want me to go through the presentation, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. We could probably launch into the questions, particularly the questions of Senator Tolentino, given that it's a very new program and
Yes.
we're all very keen to understand exactly how it's proposed to work. And we are, in fact, already in receipt of your budget presentation, and we've gone through them, including the more important and puzzling deductions. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, if I can just ask the presentation to flip directly to the food stamps, as the good chairman has already taken note of our presentation. Can we go to the food stamp portion of the slides? Doon ang page yun. Madam Chair, there's no page number, but it will be tabbed with a cover page na food stamp. Ano, kayo kasi walang page number na naman tayo.
16.
Ma'am, page 16, 16.
All
Madam
right,
Chair,
please proceed.
we're thrilled to introduce our new flagship program, the Philippine Food Stamp Program, also known as Walang Gutom 2027. Walang Gutom 2027, the food stamp program, has one simple mission: to reduce hunger among low-income families and empower them to be productive members. Through a unified approach, we're providing monetary support via electronic benefit transfer cards loaded with 3,000 pesos in food credits. These credits allow families to purchase vital food commodities from our partner merchant. Initially, we'll pilot the program with 3,000 households from the lowest income decile of Listahanan 3. We've selected areas suggested by the World Food Program, our partner, focusing on safety, security, and accessibility for all. In 2024, our goal is to reach 50,000. Actually, in 2024, our goal is to reach 300,000 beneficiaries selected from the 1 million food poor household identified in Listahanan 3. Can we move the next slide? The FSP, or the short name of the food stamp program, embodies 5 critical aspects. One, it's targeted. In a realm of limited resources, precision matters. Our aim is to direct the right recipients with the limited resources.
Okay, if I could just interject with the permission of Senator Tolentino, how is the targeting done?
Ma'am,
Kasi 50,000 lang yan, di ba?
Ma'am-
So, sino mata-target? Ano yung mga qualification?
Ma'am, let me put it in context. Initially, wala ho pang pondos siya, except that nagkaroon ng line item with a close to 2 billion pesos entry. The reason being, right now, as we speak, nagpa-pilot pa lang ho siya. The pilot is 3,000 families. It's fully funded by the Asian Development Bank. And then next year, when the pilot is done, summer of next year, sometime June of next year,
Teka, just to clarify, yung ADB
is giving us
grant or a loan?
grant of 3 million US dollars,
Okay.
150
Then,
million
sabi
pesos.
mo, wala tayong line item.
Meron na, ma'am, but temporary lang siya na bahay. It's really not enough for 300,000.
So the temporary na bahay is
1.89 billion.
and it's located in the GAA for 2024 as proposed.
It is, ma'am, because we're anticipating the scale-up of the program.
Wala nung line item.
Walang Gutom 2027 Philippine Food Stamp Program.
Okay, so kahit paano meron siyang basis.
May start-up point siya. So if we get the terminal report by next year and the pilot yields good results, then we will look for the economic team committed to look for funding for it either in the unprogrammed para may lalagyan ho siya.
Okay,
But the initial goal in the design is 300,000 families for next year, which is roughly around 12 billion pesos. And then the succeeding year to grow it by 600,000, and then the succeeding year close to 1 million. Now, what is the basis of the 1 million? According to PSA, the food poor definition is a family that does not make 8,000 pesos beyond 8,000 pesos a month. So meaning nasa survival level sila. The goal there is to look for that 1 million families. What we did is, listahan
I
nan.
think it shouldn't be very difficult. There's
Yes, ma'am.
way more than 1 million food poor families.
Ma'am, we stuck to yung kinikwento ni Senator Tolentino is the self-rated hunger survey.
Self-rated poor.
But
yeah.
what we are using here is the PSA definition using the household income,
8,000.
8,000 pesos.
Realistic is 8,000 given the food prices.
Ma'am, unfortunately, kasi we have to stick to the data with the data being given to us by PSA. So what we did is we flipped.
Do you have any idea where the 8,000 ceiling came from?
Yes, ma'am. They ran in the last FIES or the survey for income and expenditure of a family. That's where they based it on. They're currently running the new one right now, but wala pa hong results yun.
8,000 is poor, poorest
Food-
of the poor.
Food
or
poor. Food
There's
poor,
a
ma'am.
distinction eh.
Yes, ma'am.
Kasi yung nasa probinsya kahit pa paano hindi food poor. Samantalang dito sa Metro Manila, labis-labis na totally poor na itong 8,000.
Ma'am, sa definition po ng PSA when we crafted the
you're
program,
saying 8,000 is the ceiling for food poor?
Food
Or
poor.
actual multi-dimensional poverty?
Ma'am, it's food poor. Families that have barely enough to put food on the table.
Tapos, yung actual poor, all around multi-dimensional.
That's a
multifaceted
bigger number kasi kasama na doon yung those that do not have money for housing. That's 18%. The last poverty level was 18 to 19%.
Do you know what the income level was for that?
13,000. They gave us something like 13,000 to 15,000.
Yes. Yes, Senator
How were
Tolentino.
you able to identify
The 1 million?
the beneficiaries? The locations first. Geographically, NCR, Tondo, Caraga, then Carmen, Surigao, Santa Monica, Surigao.
Senator,
Dapa, which is a tourist area.
yeah.
Mayor visited me last week. And then Garchitoren and Camarines Sur, Barm, and like that.
Senator, let me clarify. These sites are for the pilot. The pilot, working with the World Food Program, gave us different scenarios to look into. If you look at those, merong former conflict areas, that's why BARM. Merong GIDA areas, that's why meron tayong Garchitorena, tsaka somewhere in Isabela, no? And then that's why we have the PAP because of calamity-driven hunger.
Yes, that, but it's a tourist area now.
Pero ma'am, Madam Chair, we have one of the highest density of our 4-piece, to give you an incidence report, is actually in Caraga. So in the pilot, what they want us to look at is how can we run the program in different settings. That's why may Tondo because of the urban poor. Meron tayong Garchitorena and one in Isabela, no, for the GIDA areas. BARM because of former conflict. And then Caraga, the Siargao area, because of calamities. Now, when we scale up the program, ang magiging basis ho niya, it will cut across different geographic areas. Yung listahanan, we took the bottom 1 million income, and they become the part of the program.
What about piloting IPs?
Yeah.
Kasi sa experience ko, Madam Chair, last week, I visited several tribes in the mountains of Davao del Norte. I was given rice. Umaga, nag-breakfast kami. Sabi nila, once a week lang sila nagra-rice. Kasi kaya daw ako pinakain ng rice. Special, ako pa lang daw nakarating doon. So, nagulat po ako noon, once a week lang nagra-rice. So, the rest of the week, maliliit talaga yung bata, the rest of the week, ang kinakain nila, the town is called Kapalong. Isang tribo ng mga manobo doon na puntahan ko. Once a week, the rest of the week, ang kinakain nila root crops. So, siguro we should take a second look at the IPs, talagang malnourished. And then, relative to that, how will this link up with your existing nutrition project?
Yep.
I saw one, the Philippine Multisectoral Nutrition Program. Kasama rin itong mga lactating and pregnant women.
Yeah.
So, how would this...
The second question is, how does it connect with the other nutrition programs? It's a continuity plan. The PMNP, the Philippine Multisectoral Nutrition Program, is a community-driven, parang kalahi seeds ho to eh. You let the community identify and they will tell us what they want. Now, it's a loan that's a partnership between DOH and DSWD. 70% of the loan went to DOH for nutrition specific. Ang napunta ho sa amin are nutrition sensitive, meaning the other facets that you need to prevent stunting. For instance, wash facilities, food security, child simulation facilities. If you put them side by side, they're complementary. The President actually instructed us to take account of all the nutrition programs. What is with the department will be the first 1,000 days because of PMNP and the food stamps program. Kasi this one is household. Now, when they get to the daycare center, which is at around 3 or 4 years old, doon naman papasok yung in-school feeding program natin. The daycare, the universal daycare feeding program or the supplemental feeding program that we call. And then when we're done with them, papunta na sila sa kinder to 6, DepEd has their own feeding program. It may look a lot na marami hong kalat-kalat, but if you really line them one by one, they have a different catchment area that we pass on to the next age bracket.
If I may, just very quickly, I think what Senator Tolentino is referring to is what we classically call the hotspots of hunger. And as we all know, coastal areas have double the incidence of hunger, and the IPs in the upland remote areas are similarly situated. So clearly, that would be very important. And with all due respect, I have serious doubts about a community-driven nutrition program. In many, many cases, the community is unable to identify proper water sources, for example, which is usually the case for hunger in the coastal areas. And in many, many cases, there is simply lack of information regarding non-traditional protein sources. So if it's going to be if it's going to be community-driven, parang hindi yan mag-work. Sa palagay ko, having done this from the early days of the Nutriban in the 70s, kailangan talaga alalayan yung community. Kasi usually yung buong community ang gutom eh. May kakulangan eh. Like Senator Tolentino said, kapag once a week lang kakain ng bigas, makikita mo kahit kamote at iba't iba pa, yung protein supplements nila talagang non-existent. So medyo mahirap yung sinasabi niyo, hindi ata mag-work yun.
Madam Chair, let me segregate the programs. the food stamp program is not community-driven. Na puntahan ng
Hindi, yung nasa
PMNP.
Kasi we're wondering how you're linking the nutrition
Ah.
projects, and particularly you also mentioned the first 1,000 days. Ang tagal-tagal na napapag-usapan, but we all know that there's really a gap.
Yeah.
Dahil yung 0, yung bagong panganak, hanggang sa 3 years old, di naman pumapasok sa daycare. At yung pumapasok sa daycare, nasa 20% lang ng total. So, ang laki talaga ng puwang nung sa unang 1,000 days
Ma'am,
na nutrition.
Madam Chair, let me segregate them into two para mas malinaw natin mapag-usapan. Yung food stamps program, ma'am, the target there was the poorest of the poor.
Hindi na ito,
Ah.
hindi na ito food stamps, yung linilink na nutrition
Yung PMNP.
program.
Ma'am, but
Na feeling ko, super sabog-sabog.
Ma'am, it will also link up. If you allow me, ma'am, the president in our meeting during the food stamp program insisted that kasi we're talking about the household here. So naturally, may pregnant and lactating women. He wanted to add the pregnant and lactating women in as target of the food stamp program. One thing that we found out is the sad part about this country is we've been talking about stunting for quite some time, but the numbers are still 1/3 because as we speak, walang database tracking pregnant and lactating women. And that's why part of the program that we want to pitch later on to the economic managers when they start funding the program is to come up with a database that's LGU driven. We can do incentives for our BHW to update it every 2 years, biannually, 2 times in a year, so that we capture the picture ng ating mga pregnant and lactating women all the way to 2. The problem is, we're trying to fight a problem, but we don't know where the pregnant and lactating women are. We don't have a database in this country. That's one. 2, yung
The BHW, as a general rule, have a very good record, but that's very micro on the ground.
Ma'am, but only if, from my experience, only if the LGU is really taking their nutrition program seriously. Meron ho kaming mga incidents wherein pati yung baseline nila wala.
Overlap dun sa Operation Timbang.
Ma'am, we're working with DOH to incorporate it.
Ganun na rin sila eh.
In this program, we're incorporating the DOH, but DOH admitted to us, the NCC admitted to us the following. And we saw this on the ground. Pati ma'am yung baseline ng timbangan, iba-iba. Some would use detector scale, some will use timbangan ng bigas, some will use timbangan ng pagkain, so you don't even know saan yung baseline data natin. Number 2, even NCC admits to us that there is no guideline on measurement kung paano susukatin ang pregnant and lactating women natin. So we're planning to work with the DOH, we're actually working with the DOH to come up with a framework na talagang malinaw. Ano ba ang, paano sukatin at the database should be accurate. That's the struggle. But going back, ma'am, to PMNP, let me clarify that community-driven development that we were talking about. Ma'am, loan ho yan. When I got into the department, it's already a loan that was being implemented. Nagkataon lang na abutan ko. The CDD framework, Community-Driven Development Framework, was patterned by the World Bank in that Kalahi Seeds program that we also run. The Kalahi Seeds program is where the LGU will identify what their needs are, do the counterparting, and then i-implement yung programa. Meron siyang mga performance indicator. What's left to us is not the nutrition side of it, the nutrition specific, but the nutrition sensitive. Creating, let's say, wash facilities, daycare centers, post-harvest facilities, food security facilities, milk banks, if that's what they require. Ma'am, Madam Chair, I was a city mayor and I understand pag yung community pababayaan yung mag-isa, talagang it's so hard for them to get it through. But unfortunately,
Kawawa naman sila. They're limited by their experience, which usually is a bunch of government programs that have been very poorly implemented. Hanggang dun lang kasi ang kaalaman kung minsan pag hindi mahilig at hindi masyadong exposed, di ba? Totoo naman yun eh. Ganyan talaga eh.
ma'am, but unfortunately, the loan is really anchored on the CDD, the Community-Driven Development Platform. So this is what the department did recently. It's multi-sectoral kasi we have to bring in private sector expertise or the community. For wash facilities, we partnered with Manila Water. We're about to sign something with Maynilad so that they can provide the technical expertise. Even the Hungarian embassy came to the office because apparently water is something important to them also. They have the technology for water sources. Ma'am, yung Kalahi, Madam Chair, the Kalahi Seeds program, which you're very aware of, during my first 1 month in the department, been to some some LGUs, may water tank pero hindi tumatakbo because water source is very hard to determine. So that's why what we decided is, given the framework that we have to work with, which is,
Ephemeral.
yes, given that we have
Biglang
to...
nawawala, di ba? Biglang may tubig, biglang nawawala, hindi mo maintindihan.
That's why, ma'am, Madam Chair, what we're planning to do is really get in the private sector with technical know-how. We just signed the technical agreement with a Manila Water to link them up with the community that was who identified water as their concern, and to help them do the technical aspect of it. But moving forward, ma'am, we've also signed up, we're about to sign with the Management Association with the Philippines and their member companies. Because it's not just wash that will be asked. Some LGUs will want, let's say, milk banks. So we have to look for another partner in the private sector to link up. The whole essence of the whole program is multi-sectoral, whole-of-nation approach, making sure that yung nutrition-sensitive side of it na naiwan sa amin is implemented properly. Now, the nutrition-specific is with the Department of Health. Yun yung actual na pinapakain, vitamins for the pregnant women.
Teka, ang DOH hindi nagpapakain, it's all micronutrients.
Micronutrients, sorry ma'am. So it's...
That more often than not expire. So,
Yeah. But ma'am,
sino nagpapakain?
ma'am, sa
Well,
NCC,
bote-bote yan,
sa
promise.
NCC, sa attached agency nila, yung National Nutrition Council, apparently nagpapakain ho sila, sabi nila sa amin.
Ilan at saan? Gusto
Ma'am,
ko makita.
unfortunately,
Wala pa ako nakikita eh.
Madam,
Pareho kami ni Senator Tolentino. Hindi kami nakikita.
Madam Chair,
If I may
Yeah.
interject,
Okay.
the first item we're talking of is the Philippine Food Stamp, which is a grant
Yes.
for the pilot.
for the pilot. Interlinked with this is the Philippines Multisectoral Nutrition Project, which is a loan.
Yes.
So, yun yung tanong ko kanina, how do you collapse all of this together and to include LGUs? Modesty aside, Madam Chair, a Green Banner Award po ako sa nutrition sa Tagaytay. Number 1 po ang Tagaytay sa
Madam Chair,
nutrition award. So, how do you
Yeah.
do this with, yes, oh.
we know fighting stunting is both nutrition sensitive and nutrition specific. Sometimes people always think, like kami nung bago ako sa City Hall sa Valenzuela, we think that feeding the child is enough. But apparently it's not. There are other things that you have to put into play para matanggal ho natin ang stunting. Kasi for instance, you can feed the child all we want, pero pag yung wash facilities masama, nagdadiarrhea lang yung bata, sa first 1,000 days pa rin, pag timbang nyo pa rin yun, malnourished or stunted pa rin siya. So that's why we're going to pair it up with nutrition-sensitive programs. Si food stamp is giving the food supplement, the pagkain, that's nutrition-specific. Yung nutrition-sensitive, yung iba naming sinasabi, wash facilities, milk banks, child-rearing facilities or early childhood simulation facilities. Yan yung complement niya, Madam Chair, Honorable Senator. Nutrition-specific is the food you give. Nutrition-sensitive is the environment you rear them in. So the PMNP takes care of nutrition-sensitive, while the food stamp will take care of the nutrition-specific.
I have no desire to debate with the good secretary, but you seem to have forgotten the most important person in the entire system, and that's the mom. At some point, I think the mothers need to be trained and need to be provided with some kind of livelihood that will directly impact on their food supply. Parang wala siya sa sensitive, ano ba ito?
Madam-
Specific, at kung ano-ano.
Madam
Yung
Chair-
nanay yung mahalaga eh.
Madam Chair, I didn't forget them. Actually, yun yung kaninang nakwento ko na 70% na natira sa DOH. The PMNP, if it's 100% na loan, 10 billion loan yon, 3 billion na punta sa amin for nutrition sensitive. Nang 7 billion na punta sa DOH, that will include capacitating the mother, capacitating the systems in City Hall for the barangay nutrition workers, capacitating the LGU to put their barangay nutrition action plans on top of their list. I have a broad idea of what they're doing in DOH kasi kapartner namin sila, pero I would really believe that they will be in a better position to explain what they're planning to do with the mom and the systems of the whole
Sorry,
setup.
that's 7 billion pesos?
Is with them. The 3 billion is with
$10.
us. Ma'am, pesos na eh. Pesos, ma'am, pesos. So, ma'am, we didn't forget them, but it's a whole of nation approach. We're dancing with DOH, but we really have to dance a bit, the simultaneous dance at it. And if I can also add, I'll have to go back to the food stamp program where this discussion all began. One of the conditionalities of the food stamp program is attending nutrition development sessions. Because the goal of the program is not just to end hunger now, but to make sure that our Filipinos eat right, mura, masarap, masustansya. So we partnered also with DOH there, Nutrition Council, together with the private sector in running the food stamp nutrition development sessions. In countries like Japan, we saw how their children are trained to eat right at an early age to avoid the byproducts of eating bad over your lifetime. Also teaching your mothers that sa murang halaga, ano ba ang klaseng ingredients na pwede nyong gawin. We will gladly submit to the committee the cookbooks that have been developed by the FNRI and as well as DSWD. It includes journals for the mothers na pregnant and lactating to track themselves over the 9-month period as well as the post-pregnancy period. Bottom line, ma'am, there are multiple, mukha lang siyang, in your term, tama ho kayo, ganun din ang pagdating ko sa partner, parang sabog-sabog, but there's a rhythm to it if you align them all together, and it will require multiple agencies working at the same time to end stunting.
Siguro one last question about food stamps, if Senator Tolentino will allow. What are the participating stores for the electronic benefit transfer card with the 3,000 credit balance? How are the stores chosen?
Okay, ma'am, right now in the pilot, the World Food Program has a merchant onboarding system. They have a checklist of what they look for. For instance, may sapat ba tong...
So, in fact, this is the listing of the World Food Program.
No, ma'am, they just give us the criteria, the merchant onboarding criteria. Right now, they're the ones still accrediting it because...
They're present here. They have merchants on board.
Yes, ma'am. But everybody's invited from kadiwa ng mga pangulo, community markets, yung mga local co-ops who are running.
And you have the facility for the EBT card. I recall that in all the ayudas early in the COVID, the big problem was getting money out of these things because the deductions were so painful.
Ma'am, in this case, they have a running program called Scoop. Scoop is just a point of sale system that can run online and offline. Ang beauty niya is it can run online and offline. It will
Ano
keep...
ba ng awas? Yun ang pinakamasaklap eh.
Wala, ma'am. Wala ho siyang bawas. So, you give it to the merchant and the merchant will start selling. So, the merchants can be kadiwa, community markets, farmers co-ops, the whole game there.
It's the pop-up eh. It's not naman
Ma'am,
a
we were-
reliable source eh.
Well, at the right time, when the terminal report of the pilot is done, we are looking at Saturday markets for GIDA areas where there are no stores. Geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas.
It would include the IPs.
Yes. So we're working at coming up with Saturday, let's say once a week food kadiwas for them kasi wala naman mga tindahan kung nasaan sila. The whole program, the beauty of the program is integrating farm to table. Kasi right now, farm to market lang eh. But we want to make sure that we bring it to the table of our hungry Filipino families. If I may just add, Madam Chair, Scoop also generates a report kung anong mga produkto ang kinakain at nabibili. It can help guide the Department of Agriculture per region on a granular level kung ano yung mabenta at dapat nilang itanim. Furthermore, if there is...
There's no limitation on food choice?
Ma'am, we can show you the table that FNRI gave us. If we can... Nandiyan may basket. Can we flip to the food basket? No, wala dyan eh. Okay nga. Ma'am, in short, FNRI gave us the Filipino food basket. So they get 50% carbs and you get to choose within the carbs families, that's right. 30% protein, you only get to choose from the family of protein. 20% from healthy fats and fiber, you get to choose from that. So basically, they get food credits and they choose within that limit. Bawal ho yung pupunta sila doon, they'll buy sugar, chocolate, wala ho doon sa choice yun. The power to choose but within a healthier menu option. Wala dyan. Tinanggal pala.
Okay. Yes, Senator Tolentino. I think you were going to ask about the IPs, no?
Kasambahay.
Yeah, sorry, the kasambahay.
Kasambahay, what was the status of the joint memorandum circular apparently signed, issued circa 2015. And this is apparently the root cause of all the domestic violence. Apparently, wala nagse-shepherd nito kung sino yung was in charge. Yeah. Dapat ano yan DOJ, DSWD, and,
Yeah.
are you,
The characters involved are DSWD, DOLE, DILG, NBI, PNP, as well as the local government units. That's in the JMC. Right now, what the department has been doing, not just for our kasambahays, but for all the victims of human trafficking, is to make sure that we have a very strong rescue, rehabilitation, reintegration plan. Making sure that they're mainstream back into the community, make sure that we remove them from the hostile environment. It's the main credo of our social protection plan for victims, whether it be a child, a trafficked person, strengthening all the rescue, rehab, and reintegration program of the department. Unfortunately, Mr. Senator, I will also have to agree that there is a lot to be done with the Kasambahay law and making sure that it's implemented properly. We will make sure that
apparently the agency working right now is your local counterpart.
SWDs, yes, the LSW, local.
Tumatrabaho nito in implementing RA 10361,
Yeah.
but the regional office of the SWD should have a hand.
Madam Chair, I agree, and we will make sure that after this hearing, we will take the initiative in working with the different agencies in making sure that this law is properly implemented and that the safety nets for our kasambahays are present.
Or just revive the joint memorandum circular circa 2015. That's the best possible scenario here. Ano po ang tanong, Madam Chair? Yung COA flag siguro.
The food retailer, the rice retailers. Madam Chair, put it simply, it is the DTI and the DTI and the LGUs, working with the LGUs and the Grain Association that are identifying the beneficiaries. Kasi sila yung may BPLO offices or business permit offices. Then they pass it on to the DSWD. We use our SLP, the Sustainable Livelihood Program, as the vehicle to...
So is that your legal and budgetary basis? You've converted SLP
But-
into rice retailer subsidies?
Madam Chair, the SLP in a couple of times has been used as pilot programs to intervene. Marawi, kasi the mandate of the SLP will be for the poor, vulnerable, and marginalized. But the SLP...
Well, I think that's the mandate of your entire department.
Yes, but this particular livelihood, kasi may ibang livelihood yung ibang departamento. But sa amin, yung livelihood program namin will always be for the smaller ones, smaller individuals. But the SLP, its main mandates are two things. One, startup capital. Two, reinforce capital during unforeseen events that may wipe out the livelihood of a small individual and bring him back to poverty. So nagamit ho to during the Marawi siege, nagamit to during Boracay lockdown, nagamit ho to during the COVID lockdown. In all those cases, a pilot guideline will be released that after the whole program is run, that is assimilated into the program. Time, we launched a pilot guideline that will take care naman of our small rice retailers. As we speak, the target beneficiary so far given to us by DTI is 7,100 small rice retailers. And then we've paid out 4,000 of them already with the total amount of 15,000 per head. So that's 60.7 million. The basis there is the guidelines of piloting it to protect our small rice retailers in this circumstance.
Tolentino. Of course, I'm very skeptical of curing the symptom and not the disease, which is the rice problem. But having said that,
It would probably be a short-term program, considering that there would probably be efforts to lift the price ceiling So how would you institutionalize a short-term program which admittedly would end within this year? Paano
But
yan?
Madam Chair,
Budgetary purposes.
How do you choose which retailers are?
Madam Chair, that is in the realm of DTI and the LGUs. In the guidelines, they are the ones with the
They can't
technical
even
expert.
implement their SRPs.
Madam Chair,
Possibly identify.
they've been working.
the right price.
They've been working with the local government units
Yes.
who have business permits offices. Just to answer, Madam Chair, if you'll allow me to answer the
Yes,
last question of
let's-
Senator Tolentino.
Allow the secretary to finish and then we proceed with Senator Antiveros.
Madam Chair, in all our pilot guidelines, and we'll submit this to the committee, there is a monitoring, post-monitoring. Ano ho ba nangyari dun sa mga binigyan namin ng grants? Even in the regular SLP, we always look at the success rate. That's why they're used as a pilot gauge first. Now, after this whole payout is done, we will have to monitor what happened to these small rice retailers. Natulungan ba sila ng 15,000 or hindi ba? Then we do our assessment as to whether or not to regularize this as a sub-program of the SLP or we don't do it at all. We always do pilot programs just to make sure that we test new concepts within the existing mother guidelines of the SLP. Same thing happened with the Boracay closure, same thing happened with the Marawi siege, same thing happened with the COVID assistance during using SLP. Rest assured, after we do the monitoring, we will furnish the committee also with the results of what transpired post-payout.
With all due respect, the SLP has hardly been a stunning success. It has only achieved 2.85 of its physical targets so far. It has only obligated 30.2% as of July 31. So, exhibiting SLP as the model for all these programs is hardly encouraging.
Madam Chair, admittedly, the SLP has a catch-up plan that we've submitted, and I'll put the slow obligation in context. When I walked into the department,
Okay, let's talk about SLP later. I
Okay.
think Senator Tiveros muna. Mamaya na
Thank you.
kita awayin.
Salamat, Secretary, for answering the question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When my turn comes to ask questions, I'll follow up one of the points raised by Sen. Francis kung paano balak ng department i-institutionalize itong food programs. And I will suggest later na in fact, meron ng at least isang institutional anchor regarding not only the small rice retailers, but also the small farmers and fisher folk. At yun po, Madam Chair, yung Sagip-Saka law. So I'll pursue that later. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I think Senator Tolentino says has no further questions. So please proceed, Senator Antiveros, please.
Salamat, Madam Chair. So siguro I'll ask about this topic first dahil dalawa lang naman yung follow-up question ko doon. So, Madam Chair, I'm glad to know that the department's supplementary feeding program for children in child development centers and supervised neighborhood play uses healthy and locally produced food. In relation to this, gusto ko sanang malaman kung yung mga raw ingredients na ginagamit sa mga meals tulad ng isda, manok, at iba pang meat products, syempre bigas, gulay, at iba pang produce, ay sourced directly sa ating mga local farmers. Batay nga po ito sa mandato na pinoprovide ng Sagip-Saka Act, kung saan explicitly sinasabi na bilang suporta sa ating mga farmer at fisher folk enterprise development, ang mga government agencies ay diretsyong bibili ng agricultural and fishery products mula sa accredited farmers and fisher folk cooperatives. At kaugnay niyan, pinagsama ko na yung dalawang punto. Gusto kong hilingin sa department, Madam Chair, isumite sa ating komite yung listahan ng suppliers para sa feeding program. Particular mga suppliers na magsasaka at mangingisda, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, two points. First of all, one of the reasons why our small farming co-ops refused to join a lot of our regional bids was that regime na sometimes some of our regional offices refused to acknowledge their tax exemptions. So one thing, admittedly, when we walked in was to reiterate that they are tax exempt. So we will furnish the committee our action on that. It's a memo that came out of our office when I was new in the department, to advise our regional office, look, that these co-ops are tax exempt. That will give them a competitive advantage in joining the regional bids. Second, we have also been encouraging. Now, let's talk about the food program, supplemental feeding program, Madam Chair. There are two ways of doing it. One is regionally procured. The other way is downloading to the LGU. We have always been advocating downloading to LGU. Why? Because they know their clients very well. And two, there is so much incentive for LGUs to buy from their local farmers. And I'll give you the statistics, and we will also give this into the committee, enter this into the committee. When we started, ang regionally procured natin, actually last year, of the 1,509 implementers of the supplemental feeding program, ang regionally procured, meaning DSWD region is procuring it, 744, and then 765 ang local government procured. But it doesn't mean na pagka regionally procured, we don't buy from our farmers as well. Case in point, in regions 9 and 11, our regional office procured the rice locally. In regions 12, it's everything: eggs, chicken, fish, dried fish, so on and so forth. And we will give you the necessary details. Region 9, again, buys their other produce there. But again, it's so... Ang nagiging problema po, Madam Chair, pagka regionally procured is, you can imagine this, our region office will buy for so many LGUs the goods. And then, we will now be sending the goods to the different LGUs. The spoilage, the wastage, the logistical issues will be a nightmare. So we've been encouraging slowly our LGUs to take on the challenge. One, they know their constituents well. Two, there's incentive for them to take care of their farmers and their fisher folks because botante nila yon. And three, the logistics is lessened pag sila na bumili. So the good news this year is our regional procurement is now down to 660. And our LGU transfers is up to 872. The ultimate goal here is mapababa pa tong regionally procured so that we just transfer the money to our LGUs. They buy from their local farmers. They buy from their fishers. And yung wastage, kasi Madam Chair, it's very hard. It's very hard for us to be doing the regional procurement and transferring all the goods to the LGUs. So those are the 2 points that we wanted to raise to further strengthen procurement through our small farmers, fishermen, through the representative agri-co-ops.
Salamat, Good Secretary, Madam Chair. Magandang nalaman namin at malaman ng publiko na mukhang may best practice yung Region 12, procuring everything from their local agricultural producers at sumusunod sa kanila yung Regions 9 and 11. Sana ma-communicate din ito sa ibang mga regions, regional offices ng department para pwede nilang sundin din itong best practices. And yes, I'll also await with anticipation yung kopya ng memo from Central Office reiterating na tax-exempt nga po yung status ng mga agricultural cooperatives. And also, speaking of exemption, Madam Chair, for the purposes of the Sagip-Saka Act, exempted din yung procurement ng agricultural at saka fishery products ng government agencies kung as part of their regular respective mandates, exempt din sa bidding process, provided na yung said agencies ay mag-undergo ng negotiated procurement sa ilalim ng applicable guidelines ng Government Procurement Policy Board. So baka po sa pag-reiterate ng content nung memo tungkol sa tax-exempt status ng mga agricultural co-ops, pwede ring ipaalala yung offices under the DSWD at yung partner LGUs ng department tungkol doon sa GPPB applicable guidelines, basta't mag-negotiated procurement sa ilalim ng guidelines na iyon, exempt doon sa bidding process. Para mas mapalawak pa at mapalaki yung paggamit nung Sagip-Saka law for the supplementary feeding program of the department, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, the Undersecretary for our General Services is here. He will take note and blast off a memo again, not to to remind our regional offices that not only are they tax exempt to mga agri-co-op, but they can also go into negotiated procurement. But again, Madam Chair, let me emphasize that regionally procured kasi is hard in the sense na we buy the goods, then we ship the goods to the LGUs on a regular basis for their feeding program. Eggs get damaged, produce gets spoiled. So malaki rin yung spoilage. So we're really reiterating na we're empowering our LGUs to hopefully procure on their own. Madam Chair, I would also want to point out, since we're talking about feeding, our desire from the department, again, to put it on record, that the budget for the feeding program is only at 15 pesos per head. But with the kind help of the chairman, we were able to put it up to 21 pesos. But if we really want to do end naman wasting and severely wasting in the ranks of our daycare students, we really have to hopefully ask for an augmentation to raise it up to 27 pesos. I don't think 15 pesos or 21 pesos is enough. So again, for the record, we would like to reiterate our desire or a request to augment the school feeding program budget.
Yes, that's well taken. If I may add to Senator Ontivero's observation, in fact, what is being utilized is the community procurement proviso in the GPPB, which is actually more liberal than the Sagip-Saka, and this allows almost any type of community procurement, provided it's adequately documented for the GPPB and DBM's purposes.
Madam Chair, further to the question of Senator Hontiveros, the department is also the main leader or the main steering agency for EPAP, the Enhanced Partnership. I don't like acronyms, but it's the anti-hunger program of the government. In that, one of the main thrusts of EPAP is to create what they call community-based or strengthening our community-based organizations na lalong-lalo na sa agri-sector. And then we link them up with government contracts, not just in DSWD, but in the other EPAP agencies that are part, which is everybody naman. These CBOs, they call them community-based organizations, are agri-co-ops, farmers co-ops, fisher co-ops. For the record, there are 421 of them that we've already linked to marketplaces in the government setup. There's around, for 2022 or 2023, close to 369 million pesos worth of government contracts have been linked up to these CBOs or these agri-based CBOs. The EPAP, bagamat hindi lang siya sa school feeding program, is still a mandate of the department, and we will make a more aggressive stance in linking our CBOs with our different government agencies so they can secure various government contracts for their produce.
Thank you, Madam Chair and good Secretary. I think that's a good beginning na may magnitude na siya ng 369 million pesos. Of course, that's less than 10% yet of the 4 billion budget for the whole supplementary feeding program. So magandang kasabay ng pag-challenge sa LGUs o pag-encourage din ng department sa mga community organizations to also step up. And well taken yung point ng chair. I guess sa patuloy din namin pakikipag-ugnayan sa mga LGU partners din ng department, we'll really encourage them to maximize participating both in the implementation of the Sagip-Saka Act and the community procurement process. So, salamat, Madam Chair. So, balikan ko pa yung unang tanong ko sana. Since nabanggit ko nga po, Secretary, and I wish to reiterate, I thank the department dun sa maagang action ng Municipal Social Welfare and Development Officer ng Socorro, Surigao del Norte. And then kahapon lang, salamat na nakipag-ugnayan ang isang taga DSWD sa Legisco para moving forward, paano talaga, mailigtas yung mga batang tumakas dun sa kulto, dun sa Mount Kapihan. Nasusubaybayan po ba, Madam Chair, ng department yung mga tao sa Socorro? Kasi lumabas po dun sa mga testimony, kinukuha daw ang halos o higit sa kalahati ng ayuda nila. No, binanggit po yung 4Ps, binanggit po yung disaster ayuda, binanggit yung pati yung AIX. So, kung totoo yun, practically gobyerno ang nagpopondo sa kulto, no? So, nasusubaybayan po ba ito and may initial thoughts po ba ang department paano ito pipigilin at i-correct moving forward?
Madam Chair, as a matter of practice, what is for the beneficiary is for the beneficiary. It's against the creed of the department when may tumabas. No matter kung sino man yan. No government official, no private individual can take what is given directly to the beneficiary. We have taken stock of the privileged speech of the good senator, Madam Chair, and we took inventory immediately of how many 4-piece households we have there. And but obviously, these are initial numbers kasi it could be not just in one sitio, but in more sitios. In Sitio Kapihan, for instance, we have 74 households na 4-piece beneficiaries. In that barangay itself, Barangay Siring, we have 503 households. What we will do immediately, and the Undersecretary for 4-piece is beside me. She's a registered social worker and one of our senior social workers. Senior in the sense of tenure, not in terms of the age, but pwede na rin. We've already spoken about getting our city links and our municipal links to pry into the well-being of these 4-piece beneficiaries in the area. Likewise, the Undersecretary of Operations is beside me, Undersecretary Pinky, the lesser senior in age. Whenever we get allegations of AIC's misuse, we take it seriously. And even here in the central office, in any other field office, she has already directed the regional director to look into the AIC's tract distribution in that area. We will look into the beneficiaries of AIC's in that region, particularly zeroing in those barangays, sitios that are in the peripheral of the site. And then we can do backtracking and our standard investigation tracks also. Again, we will immediately copy furnish the office of the committee as well as the office of the good senator on the findings of 4-piece as well as the AIC's department clusters.
Maraming salamat para doon, Good Secretary, Madam Chair. It's really good to know na both in terms of the welfare of the children, victim survivors, at yung sabi nyo nga, welfare of the beneficiaries of government social protection programs, sinimulan na ng department, alamin yon, and I fully expect will take corrective action kung meron talagang mapatunayang misuse of these programs and of these funds. Salamat po. So, on to the 4-piece, Madam Chair. In the House budget deliberation, the good secretary mentioned that the cleansing of the list has resulted in the low utilization rate of the 4-piece funding. At the same time, COA flagged duplicate names of 4-piece beneficiaries in 2020 and 2021. It also said that 6 out of 10 qualified beneficiaries are not in the DSWD database. So, yung unang tanong ko po, Madam Chair, the delisting of 4-piece beneficiaries has been met with much disapproval from the sector. However, the department has imposed a moratorium on the delisting process, which is a welcome development, especially for many who have not recovered from the pandemic. So, maaari po bang malaman ilan ang na-delist bago dinesisyon na ng departamento na i-put on a hold yung delisting? At saka din po yung criteria na ginamit sa pag-assess ng status ng beneficiaries. Ibig sabihin, anong mga parameters ang ginamit para i-consider silang ineligible para sa assistance, Madam Chair?
Madam Chair, to answer that, I hope the committee will not make I may sound long-winded about this, but it's a long story that took me 7 months to really fully understand. And I will try to cram it in a good 5 minutes. We have to look at the whole context of the story. Saan ba nagsimula ang problema? Bakit nagka-problema? Ano ang solusyon na ginawa? Una po sa lahat, 2019 nung ginawa yung listahanan all the way to 2020. This is the COVID years. So ang naging unang problema po dyan, yung non-poor na roughly 700,000. At that time, 700,000 were rated as non-poor already. Baka noong mga panahon na yun po, hindi na sila poor. But right after the lockdown, they came back and said, Naging poor ho kami kasi nag-iba yung status ng buhay namin. So we have a pool of 700,000, roughly. We've already furnished the committee the more detailed numbers, but let me round off the numbers for easy reference. And then there's another pool of 700,000 na hindi ho na-assess at all because the enumerators could not go out anymore dahil nag-lockdown na eh. So we're looking at close to around 1.4 million potential delistings. Now, succeedingly, the department wanted to reassess all of them, but there were no budgetary allocations for the enumerators to go out. So when Secretary Tulfo, pagdating ng 2023 this year, he had the good sense to immediately instruct a special reassessment. Last year up to this year, siya ho nagsimula ng reassessment because nag-worry siya na ang laki ng mga porsyento na natatanggal. So he had that good instinct to do it immediately. And when I walked in, kaka-roll in lang, nagsa-start pa lang yung reassessment. So immediately also, when we were looking at the data and big chunks, close to 80% out of 10, no? Yun na didelis kagad.
69, 31%.
69, close to 70% were being delisted. So it's in 7 out of 10. We figured there must be something wrong. So we consulted poverty experts like Secretary si Dennis Mapa, and we kind of,
Not a poverty expert.
well, he's a statistician.
Balisacan is
Also, we also consulted.
Secretary Balisacan is
Yeah.
the World Bank's poverty guru.
Yes, ma'am.
But I think Dennis is a statistician.
Yes.
Pure
But
and simple.
the reason why we consulted him is he was around when they were creating the Proximins test. They were the consultant of the department during those years. So alam nila yung, they could troubleshoot it. They could troubleshoot it for us. Kasi parang we were using the same tool, but we were getting so many delisting. So ang sagot nga namin, baka nag-iba na ang mukha ng kahirapan na hindi na nakakapture ng Proximins test. So we immediately put a stop ulit. We told them, okay, let's put a moratorium. Nobody gets delisted first. So that answers the first part of the question. Now, how do we move forward? The steering committee agreed that we use one tool that was developed in the department years ago. It's called the SWD, the Social Welfare Indicator and Development Indicator. Ano ho to? Just to give you a simple, and we will furnish the committee as well, the copy of the SWD. It's a Proximins test with a heart. Yan ang favorite line ko. Si Proximins test kasi is pure table computations. And a lot of statisticians are saying that it's blind. Tama naman, in creating this type of target tools, dapat blind siya. But it may no longer have been calibrated to look at what the following. Poverty after COVID, poverty driven by climate change. What do I say? I'll give an example po. In the Proximins test, pag konkreto na yung bahay mo, tanggal ka na kagad. Pero in some cases, like in Valenzuela, in low-lying areas, adaptive nila yung magkonkreto ng bahay. Pero hindi ibig sabihin nagkonkreto sila, mayaman na sila. So the SWD takes into account these type, kasi nga may puso siya because it's the social workers that are using it. So this will now becomes our new basis. The reason being, bakit ang bagal namin mag-disburse ng 4-piece na grants is because we put a stop muna, we take stock of the delisting, and then we will reincorporate them back into the list with the retroactive. We're studying that effect. But, Madam Chair, the SWD process was started last month and we're almost done. By the end of September, we would get the final results. But off the bat right now, ano yung 60 plus 5 edits? Ilan? 10% ang pumapasok off the bat.
99.6%. Tapos na ang
Hindi, pero ilan ang scored?
ang core po ito, survival.
At saka
Ito ang level 2.
Level 1.
Madam Chair, here nabaliktad ho. The initial results were almost 99% done. 70-30 in favor of poverty. Meaning, mas marami nang nare-retain. Unlike nung una, mas maraming naaalis on that same ratio. Because nga, suddenly, the tool that you're using will take into account different levels of poverty na that happened after COVID.
Thank you very much, Good Secretary, Madam Chair, na nasagot nyo na yung susunod ko sanang tanong, na paki-elaborate ng higit pa sa klase ng reassessment na ina-undergo ng department na led to declaring the moratorium. So that's pre-SWD. dun yung napansin niyo that something must be wrong with the original proxy means test. So 700,000 na non-poor pero 700,000 na not assessed. And syempre kung not assessed, hindi natin alam kung in-assess sila, baka na-assess nga silang poor o qualified participants sa 4Ps. And I look forward dun sa final results nyo by the end of the month. Pati dun, lalo na dahil yung parang trend ng current results nyo ngayon ay 70% in favor pa of retention or continuous participation in the program. And isa sa pinaka-interesting yung binanggit ng good secretary na the department is even studying relisting. If I remember correctly, if I heard it correctly, some who may have been delisted under the previous test.
Madam Chair, Good Secretary, yes, because we're looking at the angle of force majeure. It's in the implementing rules. We're still studying it kasi hindi ho nila kasalanan na may nangyari ho kaya hindi sila nakaka-capture correctly. And although we're still studying it carefully to make sure that we don't violate any regulatory trappings, but again, in social protection, we don't blame the beneficiary. There is a kink in the tool that the department used that also got misaligned because of COVID. Nag-iba ang mukha ng kahirapan pagtapos ng COVID. Nag-iiba ang mukha ng kahirapan dahil sa climate change. So these are things that we may have to, the department is already looking at for the next couple of years. With CBMS coming into the picture and mawawala ng listahanan, these are things that we are studying carefully with PSA as well as with other poverty experts like Secretary Balisacan on how we can come up with another targeting tool for entry and exit of the program.
Thank you, Secretary, Madam Chair, and I appreciate na yung department ayaw niya mag-duplicate ng mga tools or instruments pero at gustong in a way synchronize with other tools and instruments na ginagamit ng gobyerno as a whole. I understand that those who will still, if delisting continues, just as a regular course of the program, those who will be delisted will be replaced by those in the waiting list. So ilan po ang nakapila sa waiting list na ito? At sa listahang ito, ilan po ba ang mga bagong enrollees? Dati akala ko isang source lang ng mga bagong enrollees, yung mga bagong magka-qualify as poor or new poor. Pero apparently dahil mag-shift sa isang mas tingin ng department maayos na instrument, sabi nyo nga, tool or a test with the heart, baka may mga ma-reinstate dahil nga di naman nila kasalanan yung force majeure ng COVID at saka climate change event. So but overall, whether from new beneficiaries or previous beneficiaries who were delisted but shouldn't have been delisted or who are reassessed differently now, ilan po yung nakapila sa waiting list? At sa mga ito, ilan yung talagang bagong enrollees?
If
Madam
I
Chair.
may,
Yes, Madam Chair.
Sorry. Before the Secretary answers, recognize the presence of Senator Tulfo.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, unfortunately, we don't have that figure right now because it's still being finalized, but allow us to submit it to the committee when we do finalize the figure. But just to give you a hierarchical approach to it, we haven't entertained any of the waitlisted because now we're waiting to finish the reassessment and the pool of 1.4. So once we're done with that, we will know ano pa yung kulang namin and pupunuin namin because the GAA provision always explicitly provides 4.4 as well as in the Philippine Development Plan. There's always that notion of 4.4 and that is the magic number. So kung ano yung kakulangan nun, doon na lang ho namin kukunin doon sa waitlisted. That we will furnish the committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And that will be instructive for us in the Senate or in the whole of Congress for moving forward the following years of the implementation of the 4Ps program. So thank you for that, Madam Chair. My next question is on the status of payouts to the beneficiaries in relation to the suspended delisting process. So dahil nagkaroon ng slowdown sa distribution ng financial assistance, which was also noted upon by the good secretary, no, dun sa House budget deliberation. Since there was that slowdown, did the department halt payouts nung unang nagsimula yung delisting process, Madam Chair?
Well, Madam Chair, for the ones that were not in that pool of 1.4, the payouts continued. That's the numbers that are being moving right now in the report that we submitted. We've obligated close to 30%. Sorry. But 31.41% at this point has been obligated. But the remainder, we expect in the catch, as we showed in the catch-up plan, mahahabol ho natin yun because, again, we are currently reviewing with our legal team on the retroactive effect for the 1.4. But if our notions are correct, by the time that we finish the catch-up plan, 98% of the total budget, 94% of the total budget for 4Ps would have been obligated come end of the year towards early part of next year.
That's good to hear, Madam Chair. Dahil yung ganitong mga social protection programs proven not only in the Philippines kung saan yung mga anak ng mga 4Ps families ay nagtatapos sa senior high, marami sa kanila valedictorian, salutatorian,
Engineering.
4P, galing. Yung mga ganon, no? And so they become scholars in state colleges and universities and top the boards sa kanilang chosen professions. It's always good to hear na mataas yung target obligation rate by the time even adjustments like this delisting suspension and then reassessment are completed. Again, the Secretary has anticipated some of my follow-up questions, so I know that the payouts continued at least for 31% at first, but eventually the
31% is the finance performance.
Okay.
So meaning 31% of the allocation for 4Ps, which is close to 100 billion, has been utilized already for those accounts na wala naman hong problema. But we'll keep on running it. But in the catch-up plan we submitted by towards the latter part of this year onto next year, because remember the last pay period is in January, correct? Portions of it at least. Mahahabol namin to all the way to 94%.
So again, Madam Chair, that's good. And I was asking because my office received information that many had not received their financial assistance since last year. So baka kasama dun sa 69% na kulang pa sa current obligation rate. On the other hand, there are also those who have received but not on a regular basis. So hopefully lahat nito masasalo na dun sa 94% obligation rate by January na tina-target. So, and nabanggit na rin ni Secretary, itatanong ko sana, kung yung mga mananatili sa program pagkatapos ng cleansing or validation or reassessment process ay nakumpleto, kung matatanggap nila yung benefits retroactively, and binanggit nga po ni Secretary na there is that prospect.
We are personally, Madam Chair, I'm championing it because I believe in that school of thought in the department that force majeure itong nangyari and hindi nila kasalanan, but we're just going through the legal due diligence of it to make sure that we don't violate any COA circulars or any provisions of the law, either in the IR or explicitly in the law.
Salamat, Madam Chair. So kanina na pag-usapan natin yung mga anak ng 4Ps na nagtatapos, no, with distinction. So let's talk further about graduation. From the time the 4Ps program started, 1.11 million households have already graduated from the program for various reasons. So sa bilang na ito, gusto kong malaman ilan sa kanila nag-graduate sa 4Ps dahil nag-improve yung mga buhay nila, at ilan naman nag-graduate dahil lamang na-exhaust na nila yung maximum number of years na inaalaw ng programa, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, again, we will collate that data kasi the data that we have is only a snapshot of the current years. But what we will do is to collate everything. As the 4P secretary, undersecretary is beside me right now, we will gladly furnish the committee the disaggregated data. Those that finish because of attrition and those that finish because of improvement in their life standards.
Maraming salamat para doon, Madam Chair. And pwede ko bang malaman kung may some sort of post-program monitoring mechanism na nagtatrack ng development ng lahat nitong mga four-piece families na nagtapos sa programa? Maybe even a kind of handover with other departments or NEDA ba as a whole or
Yeah.
the DBCC? Kasi maganda di ba? Nagtapos sila dahil nag-improve yung buhay nila, nagtapos sa isang social protection program, and then talagang nagsasucceed sa patuloy na pag-aaral, sa trabaho, partisipasyon sa ekonomiya.
Madam Chair, attended all these graduations ng 4-piece, both when I was city mayor and now as secretary. It's one of those unique graduations na kalahati malungkot, kalahati masaya. Yung malungkot, kasi gusto pa raw nila magstay sa program. Yung masaya, meron na talaga sila mga anak na nakapagtapos. But I cannot overemphasize always, and you might think that I'm biased to LGUs because I come from the ranks of the LGUs. The turnover of the files are given to the LGUs. They know their constituents well, diba? LGUs. They know their constituents well, and they'll be able to track it in a granular micro level. But the 4-piece program kasi parang is saddled with so much expectations, rightfully so. It's 100 billion pesos. It's half of our budget of the department. But we also have to take note that it's meant to end poverty, not just now, but intergenerational poverty. A lot of the columnists who've written about it, like sila Mahar, were saying na there are telltale signs of its success. Children are staying, cohort survival rate is high. Children are staying in primary school longer, but you need more time to observe kung gumanda yung buhay nila. And there's always a gap that I want to point out that Congressman Paul Daza in the House has been pointing out with us in one of his advocacies. The gap between basic learning, high schools, and moving all the way to college. Now, one of the point of argument there is what happens after high school. The free higher education law has that TES component that should prioritize the grants for naman the ones that finish high school. Kasi, di ba, pag natapos ka na ng high school, wala ka ng school age na anak na nasa high school, you'll get out of the program eh. And the vision of I would believe the vision of the framers, and some of them are in this room right now, are actually ang sasalo dapat yung TES na eh. Para continued learning sila. But in the hearing in the House, we keep on giving lists to CHED na saluhin nila yung mga batang graduate, but unfortunately we're only getting a small chunk of the allocation. Meaning, we tell them, eto na yung mga batang graduate, saluhin nila. Kasi for us to evaluate kung nag-iba man yung buhay, Madam Chair, nitong mga batang, ng tong mga pamilyang to, is if naputol ba yung intergenerational poverty.
Yes, Secretary. Yeah. Perhaps you should have a look at the World Bank studies that indicate very clearly that the 4-piece program has only addressed short-term poverty, and that it's too little, too late in many, many cases. And while it has ratcheted up vaccination rate and elementary school attendance, not even high school, the impact on long-term intergenerational poverty is still moot. Kaya we cannot be so optimistic.
Madam Chair, I will gladly look into it, but that's why I'm pointing.
It's the World
Yeah,
Bank.
yes ma'am.
And
Well,
the curious thing is they gave a very negative assessment but wanted to roll over the loans. So
Ma'am,
there you go.
Madam Chair.
Bankers are the same everywhere.
But that's what we are pointing out, that there is a gap. Pagtapos niya sa high school, or let's say sa high school, because that's the vision, that's why nga, that's one of the conditions. But the gap between high school and earning a living, so that's why we were arguing that the CHED should really prioritize those that graduate from the 4-piece program na may mga anak na nakatapos sa high school. Kasi we've already invested in them, sayang eh. And that's when we break intergenerational poverty or long-term poverty. That's what, personally, the department thinks.
Well, I'm only glad, Madam Chair, we're hearing the budget of DSWD, not POF, because I would keep faith with the Secretary and hoping, no, in the sustaining and the productivity and yung pagpapagiging mabunga ng 4Ps programs. On the advice of the chair, yes, Madam Chair.
Senator doesn't mind.
Yes,
I think
yes.
Senator Tulfo, since it's noontime, is anxious to.
Yes, Madam Chair, if I may, and dear Sen. Rafi, just one last point on this question, and I'll just pose one last question on the 4Ps, even if it will be answered in my second round. It's very interesting that the turnover of the files indeed is to the LGUs. So I think this is a question then that we who are monitoring the success and the difficulties of the 4Ps program, ay pwede din naming itanong at subaybayan with the DILG, the LGUs themselves, even the leagues, kasi napaka-importante. Development that's bottom up. No? And then, thank you to the Secretary for pointing out that SHED is another dialogue partner, sa patuloy na pagiging mabunga ng 4Ps program. And my last question on this topic, I'll just make it of not a popular agency. Importante yung test at hindi pa rin namin na-resolve yung misteryo tungkol sa Unifast, but SHED, we need to engage as a commission, as an institution. For the record na lang, before I suspend my interpellation on this topic, yung House Bill 8497, which seeks to add an adult education component to the existing 4Ps law by way of 3 tracks, pinoprovide niya yung non-formal education sa pamamagitan ng alternative learning system, micro-enterprise enhancement skills development o skills training, mula naman sa DTI at sa DSWD din, at saka yung mga programa nga na ino-offer ng TESDA. So mamaya, sa second round, kung gusto ko lang makuha yung sense ng good secretary tungkol sa legislative proposal na ito. So, maraming salamat, good secretary, Madam Chair. Suspend muna po ako sa interpellation.
Thank you very much. I'd like to acknowledge also the presence of the COA. For COA questions, we can address them to COA Supervising Auditor Alma Bakuli. Asan po kayo? Ayan, okay. And Frederick Manalo, Audit Team Leader, at saka Mary Jane Sadang. All right, maraming salamat. At Senator Tulfo, if you have questions po.
Yes. Maraming salamat, Madam Chair. I fully support the budget of the DSWD. I'd like to put it on record. However, Madam Chair, meron lang po akong mga konting concerns. I've heard na napakaraming mga COS hanggang ngayon sa DSWD, contract of service. Some of them 15 years na at sila'y contractual pa rin. 6 months yung kanilang renewal of contract, yung iba 1 year. Nakakaawa naman. Baka pwede po natin gawin na silang regular. Bigyan po sila ng plantilla. Is that possible?
Yes, according to my data, if I may interject, itong DSWD na dapat nangunguna sa social justice, higit sa kalahati ang contractual at saka JO, nasa 53.4% ayon sa datos ninyo mismo, at ang katanungan natin, ba't nagkaganon?
Yun nga po, Madam Chair. Mr. Secretary, baka naman pwede niyong baguhin yung inyo pong setup ngayon dyan sa DSWD. Kawawa naman po yung marami dyan sa inyo na 15, meron pang 20 years na working hard for the department at hindi sila maging regular.
Madam Chair, Mr.
Wala
Senator.
silang benefits, of course, dahil hindi sila regular, wala silang benefits. Kawawa naman.
Madam Chair, Mr. Senator, one of the early employee activity I went to was parang yung recognition. We have a 35 years in tenure na natapos siya na parangalan pero COS siya. Yung yung pananaw nyo, yun rin hong pananaw namin, and we've been asking for more plantilla positions. But unfortunately, because of the DBM's tight fiscal space, lagi kaming nabibigyan ng sapat na posisyon. Gusto rin ho talaga
Okay,
namin.
what do you need from us? Maybe the members of this committee can help you na para kausapin po yung DBM if need be, para naman yung mga COS nyo na napakatagal ng panahon ay maging regular naman.
Madam Chair, we would gladly welcome that move ho from the committee. We've made representation, we've submitted numerous requests, pero hindi lang ho talaga kami nabibigyan ng posisyon. Kung matutulungan ho kami, much welcome ho para ho mabigyan na ng sapat na posisyon yung mga matagal na sa departamento.
Alam nyo,
Taon itong issue to, pero ang sinasabi lagi kasi ng DBM, bakit magdadagdag samantalang ang kaunti-kaunti ng inyong social workers, na trained social workers? So, are we privy to the numbers of how many social workers sa 38,000 na staff o ilang libo na DSWD employees, kung ikumpara mo, ihahambing mo sa ratio ng social workers sa buong bansa. Kasi sabi, ang DSWD, pinakakonti daw yung trained social workers. Kaya ayaw naman nila gumawa magbukas ng panibagong item. Kaya paikot-ikot yung issue, Sen. Tulfo.
Madam Chair, I'm getting the numbers now. They're behind me. Nagawa na ho namin yan. We have to remember also, and we keep on saying this to the DBM focal namin, na ang departamento ho, as a whole, the country kulang na social workers.
Okay.
That's why meron hong apelido yung department namin, development. There are community development workers, social welfare assistants. Ang total ratio lang namin ng social workers namin, 8,300. Sa aming 30,000 na empleyado, ang social worker ho doon ay 8,336.
Madam Chair, nandito yung DBM, ba't nila pasagutin yung mga taga-DBM? Andyan sila, nakita ko. Sinong matapang, sinong gustong tumas ng kamay? Ba't ganon?
DBM, ayun. Pero hindi pa tapos yata si Secretary Gatchalian.
Madam,
Tapusin
yun na ho
muna
yun,
natin.
ma'am. Humihiling
8,000 lang sa 38.
So halos 1/3 ng aming manpower ay social worker.
Less than 1/4, more like. You
Uh-huh.
have a total of 38, you only
Ma'am,
mentioned 8. Tama?
Now we have 34,000. The latest headcount tally namin.
Bakit ang sinabmit sa LBRMO nasa 38? Anyway, but hindi kayo nagtatali ng 8,000? Baka yun na nga yung
Ma'am, the
check.
record is correct. 37,000. That's correct.
Mali pa rin. 38,069. Galing po sa inyo to. Oh, anyway, DBM po, in the meantime, baka naman may talagang tamang sagot. Yes, if we could call on Chief Paul Vincent Perocho and Ina Canape.
Okay. Madam Chair, most of the non-permanent positions in the DSWD are for the 4-piece program. Sa data po namin ay meron po kami na-create na 12,055 contractual positions specifically for the 4-piece program. Ito po, na-create po ito due to specifically nga doon sa program, hindi po kami makapag-create ng regular positions.
Excuse me,
For the-
Madam Chair. Excuse me.
Yes, Senator Tulfo, please.
Sinabi mo non-permanent position, right?
Yes.
Kaya hindi sila maging permanent. 15 years na nga, kasasabi ko lang kanina, 20 years pa. Non-permanent, you call that non-permanent? 15 years na sila sa serbisyo? Non-permanent pa rin yan?
Yeah. These are contractual positions.
Kaya nga.
po, ano, yes po.
Hindi, ginamit mo kasi yung term na non-permanent. Ibig sabihin, hindi permanente. Temporary lang. Paano naging temporary yan? 15 years, 20 years, 25 years na nagtatrabaho yung mga tao doon.
Just to clarify.
Na bilang isang contractual, wala silang benefits. At yun yung sabi ka ng Senator Amy, dapat kayo yung social service, dapat kayong namumuna to make sure na makakuha ng social justice ang mga kababayan natin, kapwa natin, and yet kayo nag-violate ng tinatawag niyong social justice. This is injustice, big injustice dun sa mga trabahador ninyo.
Just to clarify.
Well, actually, hindi kayo ng DSWD. Dahil sa kagagawa ninyo, ayon kay Secretary Gatchalian.
Teka, nalilito ako. Ang sinabi mo, 12,000 contractual positions. Pero,
Yes po.
unauthorized pa rin ang permanent position. So,
Yes.
zero pa rin ang permanent kahit meron 12,000 contractual. And we are just perpetuating this injustice, di ba?
Exactly.
Parang mali yata
So
yun.
yung contractual, why don't you convert it to a contract worker, permanent?
Just to clarify, these contractual positions are coterminous to the lifespan of the four-piece program.
So tell me,
Kasi, opo, yeah,
sasabi ko
ah,
sa'yo, attorney, what's your name, attorney?
no, sir. Chief lang po.
Sabi mo, co-terminus sa four-piece program. Kailan ba nag-start ang four-piece?
Ang basis po namin
Ibig
dito,
sabihin, nagtataka ako, the four-piece program was institutionalized, Senator Bongo is here, during the term of President Duterte. So that was in 2016 pa.
yes
Bakit
po.
wala pa rin mga permanent position ng four-piece? Bakit napako sa contractual ang four-piece?
Exactly.
Samantalang nandyan sa batas, ang liwaliwanag, 7 taon na yan.
Yes po. Ang binabanggit po ninyo, ito pong RA 11310 na nag-institutionalize ng four-piece program.
Anong pangalan mo ulit, sir?
Paul Perocho po.
Walter? Ano maramdaman mo kung ikaw ay contractual lang dyan sa DBM? And then every 6 months, pagdating ng bago mag-expire yung kontrata mo, manginginig ka na, matatakot ka na kung i-renew bang kontrata mo o hindi, o baka masibak ka na. And then pag nagkasakit ka, wala kang benepisyo. How would you feel? Sige nga. Anong maramdaman mo?
Yes, Senator.
Hindi nga, sagutin mo ako. Just answer me. How would you feel? May pamilya ka, may mga anak ka, may sinusuportahan ka, may pinapaaral ka. Pagdating nung time na malapit na renew yung contract mo, nanginginig ka sa takot na baka hindi na ma-renew. Nagdarasal ka, sana ma-renew ulit yung contract ko. Sana wag ako masibak, sana wag akong pag-initan ng boss ko para hindi ako masibak dito. And then pag nagkasakit anak mo, anong gagawin mo? Kasi wala kang benefits. Think of it, okay? Yan ang assignment ko sa'yo. Pag-isipan nyo dyan sa DBM.
Yes, Madam.
Dahil kapag hindi, next time, babatikusin ko kayo sa programa ko. Araw-arawin ko kayo. Promise. Gets? Okay. Move to the next.
Madam Chair, can I add?
Hindi nga, basta huwag ka na magdiskusyon sa akin, makipag-discuss sa akin. Maging si Senator Amin na nagsabi na hindi mo dapat, ilan libo ang sinasabi mong contractual? 12,000. Ba't di nyo naman gawing regular? Yun eh. Eh gusto nga ng DSWD, kaso tali yung kamay nila dahil sa inyo dyan sa DBM. Okay?
Noted po, Madam Chair.
Very good. Good boy. Next question ko po, Mr. Secretary. In fact, ito personal experience ko, nakita ko. Yung mga tao ninyo, yung magdi-distribute ng AX, naka-backpack, puno ng pera, nag-jeep lang, tricycle, bakit po wala kayong service vehicle? Sana bigyan niyo po ng service vehicle or security man lang na para samahan po yung social worker. Paano kung na-hold up yun? O na-kidnap dahil alam na bigay na ng AX. Ito nakita ko talaga, Madam Chair, ng dalawang mata ko. Hindi ko na babanggitin saan ko nakita to. Baka mapag-initan eh. Naka-backpack, punong-puno ng, akala ko kung ano lang yung nasa laman ng backpack, yung pala pera na. Tapos yun na, i-disburse na yung cash. Nag-tricycle lang.
Madam Chair, I will not dispute that. In fact, kahit ako, nag-worry ho ako every day. Dalawa ho yung issue namin ho dyan. Marami rin kaming special disbursing officers na hindi regular employees. Ibig sabihin, may mga empleyado ho binigyan kami ng permit ng COA sa dami ho ng payout simultaneous na hindi na siya regular employee pero pinahawakan namin ng pera. That is something that is worrisome.
Yes, sir. Pero
But number two,
ang issue ko, Mr. Secretary, is sana man lang mag-rent tayo ng vehicle, sasakyan.
Mr.
And with security, especially kung pinag-usapan, that person is carrying by hundreds of thousands of pesos. Paano kung nalaman ng mga hold-upper na may pera palang laman yan, di na-hold up siya. Dapat man lang sana merong van with may kasama security para ma-secure po yung nagbibitbit ng pera.
Madam Chair, yes, we'll take note of that. We will make sure na we work with the different regions to provide the necessary components para hindi sila unsafe.
Okay. Yes. Dalawa na lamang. Lack of SDO, tama na bangit mo, no? Special Disbursement Officer. So siguro mag-open kayo ng position for that?
We will also request for creation of more of these positions.
DBM na naman. Sige, mamaya yung DBM, mainit lang ulo natin dyan eh. Wala kayong mga opisina sa iba't ibang mga lugar sa probinsya at kadalasan ay nakikiopisina lang kayo sa mga fire station, sa LGU. Bakit po? Alimbawa, karamihan dyan, mga babae, syempre, mga social worker ninyo. Tapos mga bumbero, syempre, lalaki yan. Kalubil mga lalaki, paano paggamit ng CR, paggamit ng bihisan, banyo.
Madam Chair, Mr. Senator, tama rin ho yun. Isa yun sa plight namin. Unfortunately, konti lang din ho yung binibigay sa amin na capital expenditure para makapagpatayo ng mga opisina.
DBM ulit.
Hindi, sa tulong ho ng Kongreso, palagay ko pwede niyo ho i-augment yung capital expenditure budget namin.
Okay.
Para ho madagdagan. Kasi mas marami, admittedly, mas marami kaming MOE na natatanggap para sa grants.
Okay.
Pero medyo mas maliit lang ho yung binibigay sa amin for capital expenditure. Pati na rin nga sa pagbili ng sasakyan. Pero we will find ways pa rin ho, working with local government units, nakikihiram kami ng space. But we'll continue to look for creative ways to house our people safely.
Okay, and the last but not the least, kulang-kulang po kayo sa laptop ngayon?
Sir, Madam Chair, that problem we already have a solution. Meron ho kaming pondo na. Nakuha na rin namin yung ISSP namin mula sa DICT. So we're now in process of procuring hardware, hindi lang laptop, printers, lahat ho para sa mga tao natin. Meron na kaming IT plan na approved na ng DICT. Tapos nagpo-procure na ho kami as we speak.
That's all, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you very much, Senator Tulfo. Does Senator Go wish to interpolate?
Anyway, magandang umaga po, Madam Chair, distinguished colleagues, and to the Department of Social Welfare and Development led by Secretary Rex Gatchalian. For the record, I am supportive of programs that will help our countrymen in need. Basta po makakatulong na mga programa sa mga mahihirap nating kababayan. Noon pa man po, nakahanda naman po kung sumuporta parati. Full support naman po tayo sa DSWD. At in fact, isa ako sa mga nagsulong na madagdagan po ang budget ng DSWD para sa taong ito para makapagbigay po tayo ng tulong sa mga kababayan natin na walang ibang matakbuhan kundi ang ating gobyerno. Having said that, Madam Chair, it is incumbent upon us to ensure that these programs will directly benefit poor and indigent Filipinos. Dapat po siguradong nakakarating talaga sa mga mahihirap yung mga programa. Ang budget na inoprobahan natin dito, kailangan natin masiguro na epektibo po ang programa ng DSWD at mabilis pong na-implement. For 2024, the proposed new appropriations of the DSWD is 207 billion. This is higher than the 196.5 billion budget of DSWD in 2023. Gusto po nating malaman kung paano ginagawa ng DSWD ang mandato nito, lalo na yung mga nakasaad po sa batas. On that note, Madam Chair, I wish to propound some questions to the DSWD Secretary lang po.
Yes, please proceed po.
Sir, Secretary Rex, according to the Malasakit Centers Act, the DOH, DSWD, PCSO, and PhilHealth shall have representatives in Malasakit Centers. Batas naman po ito. Naprubahan po natin sa tulong ng mga kasama natin sa Kongreso at napirmahan po ng dating Pangulo. Batas na po ito sa ngayon. Nakapag-provide ba tayo ng mga representatives sa mga 159 na malasakit centers? Can you ensure na hindi po natatanggihan ang mga pasyente na kailangan po ng tulong? Kaya nga po meron tayong one-stop shop para hindi na sila kailangan pang magpalaboy-laboy pa sa iba't ibang ahensya at isa na lang po ang kanilang pupuntahan. At magastos yun, sir, yung pamasahe na pupunta pa sila sa iba't ibang opisina. Wala na nga silang pamasahe, kailangan pa nilang gumastos dahil pupunta pa sila sa iba't ibang opisina. Minsan nag-aantay po yun na madaling araw, nakapila po dyan. sa mga opisina po ng gobyerno para humingi ng tulong. Ngayon, meron na tayong one-stop shop sa loob ng ospital para yun na lang po ang lalapitan nila. At ini-expect po nila ang tulong ng DSWD sa pamasahe at sa medical assistance rin po. At I also want to take this opportunity to call out PCSO, no? Wala po yata sa kalahati ng malasakit centers ang mayroong PCSO representative. I just want to put that on record, and I have already asked the PCSO to report to us on its plan to address this. Sa DSWD naman po, I understand the DSWD also provides medical assistance. However, I have received reports that it only be accessed for now in DSWD regional and field offices. Ano po ang ginagawa ng DSWD para ma-access na rin po ang medical assistance ninyo sa malasakit center? Nang sa gayon, hindi na kailangan po lumabas ang pasyente ng hospital at kailangan pang gumastos ng pamasahe. After all, layunin naman po ng lahat na hindi natin dapat pahirapan po ang ating mga kababayan, lalong-lalo na po yung mga mahirap nating kababayan.
Madam Chair,
Before the Secretary responds, may I recognize Senator Jingoy Estrada.
Madam Chair, we've taken inventory of all our malasakit centers. At as far as we know from our record right now, they are manned by our people. At least yung share po namin. For the record, as of the end of August, we have already serviced 131,533 direct beneficiaries out of the malasakit centers. In peso value, that's around 329 million pesos worth of grants given to clients in the malasakit center.
Sa loob po ng malasakit center,
Grants
Mr. Secretary.
yes, in the
O
malasakit center.
kailangan pa po nilang pumunta sa mga opisina, regional offices niya? For the record lang po.
Medical. Okay po. Mr. Secretary, Madam Chairman, just to break it down, yung numero na binigay ko includes other things, but yung direct na medical dispense in the malasakit centers nationwide is around 47 million as we speak ng August 31 ending. The number of beneficiaries is 7,924. Ito yung direct sa malasakit.
Mismo sa malasakit centers po.
Madam Chair, yes.
Hindi na sila kailangan pumunta ng opisina ninyo. Nandoon na po mismo sa malasakit center.
Madam Chair, yung mga office namin nagdi-dispense, but itong numero na binanggit ko, yung na-dispense sa malasakit lamang. Pero yung pumunta...
Pwede nyo bang ma-check, Secretary, kung mismo ba ito sa loob ng malasakit center or pinapapunta nyo pa po ba sa mga offices ninyo sa regional offices?
Madam Chair, we will look into that, but the report of the Assistant Secretary and the USEC for Operations, itong numero na to, which is a small amount sa total na medical disbursement namin, 47.7 million pesos worth of grants ang na-dispense in the malasakit centers. That's around 7,924, but we will gladly double-check again.
Please po, pahingi lang po ng kopya ng report. And then, can you ensure po na matutulungan po yung mga pasyente? Dahil ayon naman po sa batas, ang malasakit center naman po ay nandun po dapat, no, may representative tayo, kayo, ang DSWD sa mga hospital. Can you ensure for the record na matutulungan po yung mga mahirap dito po through DSWD sa programa nyo po?
Yes, Madam Chair, I am making that commitment and I am making that manifestation clearly na lahat po ng kailangan tulong, pati yung mga nasa malasakit center, tutulungan po natin.
Maraming salamat po, Secretary Rex. Sa mga unfilled positions po and social workers, ilan po ang assistant secretaries and undersecretaries ng DSWD sa ngayon at wala naman po problema sa dami, no? Masisipag naman po ang ating mga empleyado. Alam ko naman po yan. Can the Secretary please enumerate all the names of the assistant secretaries and undersecretaries with their corresponding function? And ano po yung mga benefits being received by social workers under the DSWD? Ano po ang mga initiative ng DSWD para pangalagaan po ang ating mga social workers? Alam niyo po, nagustuhan ko po yung sinabi ninyo during your hearing, during your confirmation po sa Commission on Appointments na ibig sabihin po ng DSWD ay Department of Social Welfare and Development. Pero importante rito yung mga maliliit po na ating mga social workers. For my part, I filed Senate Bill 1707 which seeks to provide competitive remuneration and compensation packages for our social workers. Sana po'y bigyan sila ng benepisyo at maging regular nga po, no, itong mga social worker natin.
Madam Chair, for the record, we have 10 undersecretaries and we have 20 assistant secretaries. I can read all their names, but I would rather put it on record also that all the assistant secretaries as we speak have been tendered all their courtesy resignations. As we speak right now, we ask for a complete, the assistant secretaries, we ask them to, we are currently right-sizing and streamlining our operations. That's why we took the initiative of making all the assistant secretaries, 20 of them, file their courtesy resignations. We're in the process of reviewing it one by one to make sure that we have the right amount and we have the right job positions. So I can read their names, but right now, all of them have tendered their courtesy resignations. Hindi ko pa lang nauupan isa-isa because we were busy with the budget season to make sure that they justify what they do and if there is a fit for them in the department. I can read their names, but
Ano na lang po, submit na lang po.
yes, we'll submit the names. So we've already streamlined our undersecretaries ranks. There are 11 positions, but we only have 10. Tama, no? 10. Sorry, 9. We have 11, but we have 9 right now na undersecretaries. We have 20 assistant secretaries, all of which have tendered their courtesy resignations for right-sizing and streamlining. Now, talking about our social workers, I agree with the good senator that they don't get enough. But that's why one of the initiatives na nadatnan ko ni Secretary Tulfo that we really push for is the Magna Carta for Social Workers provision. There, they are given, hindi niya na ho natapos, ako na ang tumapos. Pinilit kong tapusin yung maganda niyang inisyatibo. Konting-konti na lang, pipermahan na lang niya, hindi na lang niya naabutan. So, I'm very thankful to Secretary Tulfo for that initiative. That is for our public social workers. Among the many things that they now enjoy, I'll probably just yield the floor to nasaan ba? Okay, they get a daily subsistence allowance and they also get hazard pay. In the event that they are moved, let's say for temporary assignments in certain regions, diba? They get housing and the necessary cost of living allowances. On top of that, the following are also given to them. They are now enjoying, these are for the public social workers, not just of the department, but of other departments na public in nature. They get overtime pay, they get longevity pay. So ito ho yung mga nilalaman ng Magna Carta ng social worker na tinapos ni Secretary Tulfo, hindi na lang niya napumirmahan. Kaya nga nung araw na yon, sabi nga namin, that day was really meant for his good works for our social workers. On top of that, the department, these are all economic in nature. But I'd like also to point out that the Department of Justice issued a memo circular protecting our social worker from public arrest. From public arrest, no? Yeah, for prosecutors to dismiss cases filed against our social workers. So that's the non-monetary protection that we give our social workers in the public field.
Actually, Secretary Rex, I filed Senate Bill 1707. Ito po yung which seeks to provide competitive remuneration, increasing the salary grade ng salary grade 11 to salary grade 13 at alam nyo, bigyan po natin ng importansya ang ating mga social workers at alam nyo, malaki po ang kanilang role dito sa inyong departamento po, Secretary.
We are in full support of that, Madam Chair, and we will enter our position paper accordingly at the right time.
Okay, salamat, Secretary Rex. Next, ito pong alam niyo naman po, nung panahon ng pandemya, ay marami pong mga kababayan natin na mga probinsyano na natutulog na lang po dyan sa sidewalk dahil wala silang kamag-anak, wala silang tirahan, gusto nilang bumalik ng probinsya. Ngayon naman, nagbabalikan na po yung iba rito, pero still, marami pa rin gustong bumalik ng probinsya dahil nandun yung kamag-anak nila, marami silang malapitan ng tulong. Ito pong Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa, in fact, nagpasa rin kami ng resolution dito sa Senado. Executive order po yan, pinirma ni dating Pangulong Duterte, or simply return to the province, giving them new hope, is a socio-economic program by the Philippine government to reverse the migration of people to Metro Manila and other urban areas who were originally from more rural areas of the country. In our meetings, Secretary Rex, you gave us your commitment that the Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program will continue even after the pandemic. Kaya po, hindi ko po ito tinanong during your hearing sa CA, but I would like to get an update lang po sa programang ito. Gaano ba karami ang natulungan natin through this program since its implementation? You mean to say out of more than 13 million people in Metro Manila, ilan na po ang bumalik sa probinsya at ilan na po ang natulungan ninyo? At saan pwede lumapit sa inyong opisina kung sakaling meron pa pong gustong bumalik ng probinsya? At ano pong assistance ang binibigay ng DSWD? At magkano po ang budget sa 2023? At ano po ang status nito? At ano pong plano ninyo?
Madam Chair, this is a very good program that we inherited that we plan to keep and in fact use all the time. For the record, ang na-serve natin for 2023 is 2,426 out of the target na 4,572 families. Ang financial allocation niya is 3.5 billion thereabouts, and ang nagamit ho is 1 billion or 29%. Now, we've already asked for a new executive order to build on the gains of BP2. Yung BP2 is something that we want to expand to include other types of intervention na magagamit sa mga pamilya na nakatira sa lansangan. We call them families in street situation. And right now, we have a full-blown team of around 60 teams roaming around Metro Manila, reaching out to our families in street situation. Yung mga nakikita nyong nakatira sa ilalim ng lansangan, nakatira sa kalsada. Hindi na ho namin inaantay na sila ang lumapit sa amin, kundi hinahanap na namin sila sa mga lansangan ng Metro Manila. Yes, this is the work of the local government units, but we know na marami na silang ginagawa. Kaya nga naglunsad ho ng mainstay na program. Hindi yung seasonal, mainstay na program ang department to reach out to our families and individuals in street situation using the components of BP2. Pagbalik nila sa probinsya, they also get community grants for livelihood that the local government unit, yung CSWD ng pinanggalingan nila will be helping us monitor the livelihood grants that they get.
Kasama na rito yung mga street dwellers po na Dilimos.
Kasama po because we found out a lot of them are actually stuck in Metro Manila na gustong umuwi rin. Marami kasama na ho sila.
Saan po sila nilalagay ng DSWD sa ngayon po?
Sa ngayon, temporary lang ho ang goal namin. Hindi naman ho sila dapat nasa housing facility namin kundi nakauwi sa probinsya. So nilalagay namin sila sa mga residential care facilities natin. Depende po, Madam Chair, kung pamilya ba sila or individual sila. Kasi bawat care facility may iba't ibang klaseng mga mandate.
Salamat, Secretary Rex. Ang dami kasi naghumingi ng limos, no? Sa kalye. Anyway, going to ito naman pong AX, no? The assistance to... Babalikan ko lang muna yung 4-piece. Madam Chair, yung 4-piece pala, nag-umpisa po yun even before the term of President Duterte. Actually, dinagdagan lang po niya yung usual benefits yata na 1.5 ang tinatanggap ng 4-piece beneficiaries. Meron yata siyang pinadagdag. Sabi niya kahit na pambili po ng bigas, hindi po... Gusto niya sana originally bigas ang ibigay. Ngunit nag-decide yata ang DSWD na gawin pong cash, no? Magkano po yung nadagdag?
600.
So from 1.5, nadagdagan ng 600.
Yung amount kasi ho na binibigay sa ating mga beneficiaries, depende ho sa circumstance ng pamilya. Ang maximum niya roughly around 3.5 to 3.8, no? 3.5 to 3.8. Range ho yan, di ba? Depende ho, Madam Chair, kung ilan ang anak mo na school age, but may maximum na 3 bata at any given time. Then dinagdagan ho ng ating Pangulong Duterte, dating Pangulong Duterte ng 600 pesos na rice subsidy.
So 600 po ang nadagdag compared po dun sa previous administration pa.
Yeah, yes, Madam Chair.
Gaano po karami ang membro ng 4P sa ating bansa at gaano kadami ang tinaas nito compared before numbers po?
Madam Chair, just to point out, nakasaad ho sa gaan natin na lagi hong 4.4 yung numero nila. So hindi ho sila dumadami. Hanggang doon lang yung budget allocation na natatanggap niya. Sana mas malaki pa kasi marami hong waitlisted. Pero ang allowed lang ho sa amin is a maximum of 4.4 million families. Sa
Nag-graduate ho ba?
May nag-graduate ho, yun ho yung tinalakay kanina, na either umabot na ng 7 years, yun yung nasa batas, so kailangan nila umalis sa programa. B, meron na silang, hindi na nila nami-meet yung kondisyon, ibig sabihin wala na silang school-age children. Pangatlo, meron talagang mangilan-ngilan na hindi nami-meet yung kondisyon, hindi pumupunta sa family development session. Yan yung mga rason para umalis o graduate sa programa.
Salamat. Going to AIX, assistance to individuals in a crisis situation is one of the social welfare services of the DSWD. At naumpisahan rin po ito sa panahon po ni dating Pangulong Duterte that provides medical assistance, burial, transportation, education, food, and financial assistance for other support services or needs of a person or family. Para po ito talaga sa mga mahirap, indigents, Secretary Rex, sino po ang authorized officers ng DSWD para mag-disburse po ng cash under the AIX program? Based on the 2022 audit report ng COA, meron pong 724.5 million na dinisburse ng contract of service workers acting as paymasters at iba pang empleyado na hindi authorized na mag-handle ng cash accountabilities. Bakit?
Madam Chair, that was what I mentioned a while ago. Sadly, gusto talaga namin, kasi alam ko naman ho na dapat regular employees yan, pero ilan lang ho ang regular employees natin kumpara sa payouts na nangyayari sabay-sabay. Pero succeeding to that, I believe succeeding to that COA notice, we also got a clearance from COA that allowed us later on, succeedingly, to authorize our casual employees and our casual, contractual, and contract of service employees to do the dispersing. Meron pong COA report, COA authority na lumabas po niyan. In fact, nung bago ako sa departamento, ni-renew rin ho nila yon. But ang mas importante rin ho na tignan natin is not just the dispersing, but lahat ho yan dumadaan sa social worker for the proper intake and recommendation kung magkano yung ibibigay.
At gaano po katagal yung validation ng AIX? Halimbawa, kung may nangangailangan ng tulong sa DSWD office, gaano katagal po yung matatanggap niya assistance?
On the spot, Madam Chair, on the spot, pag pumunta kayo, katulad doon sa central office or any of the regional office, pag pumunta ka doon sa umaga, i-check ho nila yung inyong identity, authentication, then intake na ng social worker, then payout na po tayo. Meron lang ho talagang pagkakataon, Madam Chair, na kulang yung dala niyang requirement or wala siyang ID, so pinababalik namin. Pero nowadays, marunong na ho ang ating mga kababayan. And meron lang pagkakataon, and this is only happening in the central office na mas marami talagang pumupunta. Meron kaming scheduling kasi kundi aabot na sila. Ayaw na natin makita yung eksena na natutulog sila sa labas ng office namin. So ang ginawa namin, may scheduling process tayo na kapag umabot na ng 1-3 kada araw na walk-in, the rest will be scheduled for the succeeding day. Pero sa central office lang ho nangyayari yun.
So on the spot po?
On the spot po.
Okay. Tuloy-tuloy ho ba yung pamimigay nyo ng tulong sa mga estudyante, yung educational assistance through AIX ngayon?
Marami hong, isa ho yan sa maraming mga assistance, nasa guidelines po yan. Every day may mga pumupunta sa iba't iba naming mga opisina na humingi ng educational assistance, pero dumadaan ho yun sa assessment ng ating mga social worker. Kasama pa rin siya sa menu.
So kayo po ang nagbabalidate, for example, sa isang lugar, kung meron kayong bibigyan ng...
Sa isang individual.
Opo. Or sa grupo po ng mga estudyante, kayo po ang nagbabalidate, di ba? If they are qualified.
In all the program components ng guidelines ng AIX, social workers po.
So kayo nga po, DSWD.
Yes, opo.
So, malalaman niyo po kung qualified po ito, indigent talaga to, ngangailangan ng tulong.
Yes, Madam Chair.
So, and then, magbibigay ho kayo ng
Financial
assistance or payout, gano'n.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay. nakarating kasi sa aking opisina ang ilang reklamo. Meron po mga estudyante, no, sa General Luna, sa Quezon. Umaasa na po ito, validated na po ng DSWD at ready na po sila for payout. Alam po, yung mga mahirap talaga itong mga kababayan natin, mga estudyante. Alam po, hindi na tuloy po yung payout nila. Gusto lang po natin malaman, sir, no? Pa-check nyo lang po kung bakit po hindi na tuloy. Magkano pa po ba ang pondo ng AIX sa ngayon? Sa kabuuan po, AIX, kabuuan.
Madam Chair, before I answer that, it's in my cell phone also, the data. But if I can ask the help of the good senator to furnish us a copy of those students, so what we can do is direct the regional office to do a payout.
Magkano po
immediately.
muna yung balanse ng AIX ngayon for the record? Ang budget ng AIX at saka nagamit po ng AIX. As of today.
We have only the August 31 cutoff. The total budget for AX is 36,818 billion. Ang balance po natin is 16,858.
So ang ilang percent na po itong utilization?
54.21%.
So meron pa pong 45% pa or ilang billion pa po ang balanse?
16.858 billion.
So meron po pong pera ang AIX?
Meron pa ho.
Sa kasalukuyan as of September.
As of August 31.
So meron pa pong pondo. So pwede nyo bang mabalikan po ito, Secretary, at ma-explain naman po sa kanila na bakit di po sila nabigyan ng tulong. It was validated po by the DSWD, na qualified naman po sila, mga estudyante. Hindi lang po sa General Luna sa Quezon, marami pa pong iba. Baka pwede nyong ma-explain po sa kanila na kung may pondo po ba ito mga naka-ready na po, no, for payout sa Bataan, ito po sa General Luna. So for the record po, may pera po.
For the record, may pera po. Hindi ko lang ho kabisado kung
So kung validated na po sila ng DSWD, pwede po sila makatanggap.
Yes, Madam Chair.
So pwede nyo silang mabalikan at mabigyan po ng tulong dahil umaasa po sila sa DSWD.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Mga mahihirap naman po sila.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Tulungan po natin. Marami pa po, pwede po bang i-provide namin sa inyo ang listahan po nito? Mga qualified, validated na po ng DSWD, pero hindi na po binalikan ng DSWD.
Yes, Madam Chair. If we can get a copy so that we can direct the necessary field office to look into it and do the payout immediately.
Sa Bulacan, sa Pampanga, sa Cagayan, ito po yung mga naapektuhan rin po ng bagyong Egay. Opo. Baka pwede pong balikan nyo sila, Secretary Rex, dahil umaasa po sila sa Negros Occidental. Karamihan po nito, biktima po ng bagyo. Karamihan po nito mga mahirap nating kababayan at sana naman po maawa naman tayo sa mga empleyado ninyo dahil sila po ang humaharap, no, mismo doon sa mga regional offices. Sila po ang bigyan nyo lang po ng totoong sitwasyon. Kung talagang qualified naman po itong mga mahirap, biktima po ng bagyo, baka pwede pong nakikiusap ako sa inyo, Secretary Rex, ito po yung mga mahirap nating kababayan. Baka yung ano lang po yung totoo. Maawa naman tayo sa kanila na umaasa po sila ng tulong mula sa gobyerno. At wala ho silang inaasahan kung hindi tayo po nasa gobyerno. Wag po natin sa kanila ipagkait yung tulong po, Secretary Rex.
Madam Chair, ang departamento ho will definitely pay them out. Makuha lang ho namin yung mga listahan.
Marami po yan, mga typhoon victims, mga estudyante na qualified po. Tsaka umaasa, ilang araw na po na hindi nila natatanggap. Pwede nyo ma-explain sa kanila, Secretary Rex. Ito po yung mga mahirap nating kababayan. Wawa talaga. Tulungan po natin.
Yes, Madam Chair. The good
Ako malaki po ang
assurance.
tiwala ko sa iyo, Secretary Rex, na tulungan mo sila. Tulungan naman natin sila.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Nasa sayo na po lahat sa mundong ito, binigay na po ng Diyos, mayaman ka, lahat posisyon. Panahon na po na tulungan po natin yung mga mahirap.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Totoo naman, Secretary Rex, di ba, mayaman naman ang pamilya ninyo. Hindi na pinagkakait yan. Isa po kayo sa pinakamayaman
Hindi naman.
sa
Uh,
buong Pilipinas, Secretary Rex. At ako po'y nakikiusap sa iyo, I'm begging you,
no, Madam Chair,
na tulungan po natin yung mga mahirap nating kababayan.
hindi na ho kailan makiusap. Trabaho ho namin yan sa departamento.
Asahan ko po yan,
Opo.
Secretary Rex.
We'll get the list, and what we will do is direct our field office to do the necessary arrangements. Whether sa loob ng aming opisina, in batches, we will definitely do that. Makuha lang ho talaga namin yung mga listahan.
Hindi po natin madadala yung yaman ninyo sa kabilang buhay, Secretary Rex.
Yes, I understand, Madam
Totoo
Chair.
lang po. Totoo lang po, Secretary. Unahin po natin, tulungan po natin ang mga kababayan nating mahirap, Secretary.
Madam Chair, the good senator has my assurance. I have lived a life of almost 15 years in public service in the local government unit. I have seen poverty when I was a city mayor and a congressional member of Congress. So naunawaan ko ho yung punto niya na importante itong serbisyo na to.
Nakikinig sila, promise yan ha.
Yes, Madam
Tulungan
Chair.
mo yung mga
Yes.
mahirap ha.
Yes,
Wala kang
Madam Chair.
pipiliin, Secretary.
Wala ako, Madam Chair. Hindi ko-
Pabalikan mo lahat ng mga mahirap,
Yes,
Secretary Rex.
yes,
ha?
Madam Chair.
Nangako siya for the record. Nakikinig po ang sambayan ng Pilipino.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Sandali lang po. Madam Chair, pwede pa ba? Balikan niyo lang ako.
Okay,
Pwede
madali
ba?
pa ba yan? Kasi nakapending rin si Senator Risa at hindi pa nakakapagtanong si Senator Jinggoy.
Pwede naman po itong balikan po.
Okay,
Salamat.
salamat. Senator Jinggoy, wala nang break. Gutom lang ako.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, ating napakagandang Senadora Ivy.
Free pa ba, Secretary? Or violation na tayo ng human rights?
Hindi, Madam Chair, I'm okay. I'm okay. I came prepared.
Justice na
I
naman.
ate a lot this morning.
Okay, Senator Jinggoy, pwede pa raw, buhay pa siya.
Thank you. This representation would also support any move to augment the funds of DSWD for various programs and to fulfill its mandate to provide social safety nets and ultimately cushion the effects of calamities as well as price shocks, Madam Chair. Actually, I am here because my daughter is here. And actually, I do not have any questions with regard to the office of the secretary. And I think the secretary is doing his job very well. And I'll just ask a few questions to my daughter. Kasi nakita ko rito, I think she's quite nervous, Madam Chair. And you better address me properly, huh? We're not in the house right now. As I've browsed the budget of the attached agencies of DSWD, I think your agency, the National Authority for Child Care, decreased drastically, no? Around 30.98%. Na decrease ng 135 million, am I correct?
Yes, Honorable Senator.
Buti naman. Why is that so? Do you want to restore the 135 million? And can you justify why you want it to be restored?
Actually, Honorable Senator, our NEP for 2024 is 301,252,000. And I want to manifest, Madam Chair, we at the National Authority for Child Care is humbly requesting for an additional budget on top of the allocated 301 million to fund the MOOE and capital outlay of our 16 regional offices. Unfortunately po, kasi hindi po na-include yon sa proposed budget, and currently our regional offices are sharing limited office space with the DSWD, and we are thankful to our mother agency for accommodating them and for housing them. But we are a growing family already, and we hired more social workers and staff. At ang pinaka-problema po namin ngayon is wala po kaming bahay per region. So, yun pong nire-request namin, Honorable Senator and Madam Chair.
How many regional offices do you have currently?
16 regions,
16
Senator.
offices?
Yes.
In how many regions?
16 po.
16 regions. So kulang pa. So how,
Hindi po, wala po kaming office per region kasi currently we are housing with
so you
DSWD.
do not have any offices in
Yes.
all the 16
If I
regions that
may.
you mentioned?
Not yet.
With the indulgence of Senator Jinggoy, the DBM is here, we can ask them. But clearly, the observation is that the number of permanent positions was increased from 47 to 556. Ang problema, as of June, only 36 of the positions were filled. Kaya ayaw nang dagdagan. Kasi hindi naman kayo nakapaglagay ng tao. So you are now relying heavily on casuals and JOs na ayaw ng DBM kasi hindi naman napupuno yung mga line item na permanente na sana na ilagay ninyo. DBM, please, is that correct? That's what I read from the report. Tama po ba yun? Dahil kasi ang numero dito, nag-increase kayo ng permanent position sa 556, kaya lang ang baba-baba ng pag-implement. Yes, Mr. Perocho, please.
Madam Chair, as of yesterday, the NACC has 523 authorized positions. 95.1% are still vacant on our
95.497
which is
Yeah.
497 are still vacant.
remain vacant, and that's the reason why they don't want to give the budget, because the requested line items have not been filled.
Yes, Madam Chair, we have already completed all interview and calibration of social workers, and these are detailed social workers from DSWD, and hinintay na lang po namin masubmit sa civil service for appointment and to formalize their transfer to our plantilla positions. Kasi nagka-problema din po kasi kami because yung mga nabigay na positions from DBM is medyo mababa po, kaya di po kami makahire ng mga social workers dahil ang nabigay po sa aming position is lower than the ranks of our social workers na.
Pero madali lang yan kasi napakasimple niyan, ang dami-dami niyan. You have 521 positions. You can easily fold them upon request to the DBM. Isn't that the case? Did you make such request?
Yes po, DBM said,
Ang laki ng numerong bakante. Pwede mong ifo-fold yan para mas matataas ang sahod at ang pwesto. Are
Madam-
you in receipt of any such request, DBM, please?
Not yet, Madam Chair. They can also request for scrap and bill.
Madam Chair, we had a meeting po with DBM.
Higher items, di ba, in the first place?
If they deem that those positions are, they are not needed,
Sorry?
they do not need those positions that they have now.
Yes, you can actually declare those positions redundant and further request for higher qualifications and matching salary.
Madam Chair, we spoke to Director Sophia regarding our positions.
But there doesn't appear to be any request on record.
Madam Chair, Honorable Senators, if I may please. When our OSSP po was first released, we already signified po that the social worker positions that were indicated there were quite low considering that our program is a specialized program for adoption. And then our social workers po provide technical assistance, not just to other social workers, but to the LGU ones as well.
Kayo sa DBM?
Opo,
Hindi
opo.
hindi kasi tungkol sa budget na yan eh.
Nung yung OSSC po, kinonsult po namin sa kanila, ang sabi po nila is, punuin daw po muna yung existing, and then after daw po, for this coming 2024, we can make a separate request indicating that we need higher ranking social workers. Yun po ang ibinigay sa amin na instruction. So what we did po was, we tried to complete and to fill in po all of the positions. And then at present po, nakapag-interview na po kami for all the social workers, and then
Pero wala pa sa 5% ang compliance ninyo eh. Ang layo eh.
Yes po, Madam Chair. It's also because initially po, for the first OSS2 that was given to us, even for the existing ICAB, the previous ICAB employees po, hindi po comparable yung positions. So some of them were even at the risk of being demoted. So we
Sige,
have to
mag-usap
consult
na lang
po.
kayo ng DBM, Janela, kasi
Opo.
mahirap magpa-increase kung napakarami palang unfilled positions.
And office space natin kasi wala.
Opo, actually, we're asking for an additional fund because of the regional offices po. Kasi po, once we hire the social workers and other staff, hindi po namin alam kung saan po namin sila ilalagay because DSWD is also hiring social workers and other staff. So wala po talagang space yung aming mga staff, yung aming pong mga empleyado.
Siguro I will convince Senator Amy to...
No, it's not me. It's the DBM. I think it's not me at all.
Tapos na ba budget ng DBM?
I think
Nag-deliver ka ba?
I think you already
Maybe I
placed-
can make representations with the secretary herself, si Secretary Mina, with regard to the problem of one of its attached agencies ng DSWD.
I think Senator Jingo, you had 150 million congressional initiative, di ba, in the 2023 budget for the NCAA.
I'm
And
not aware
it was
of it.
not also, neither was it considered by the DBM in the 2024. Yung nailagay sa 2023, hindi siya na-repeat sa 2024. And that's also a part of the reduction.
Okay. Okay, no further questions, Madam Chair, because it's already 12:30. I think our resource persons are already hungry. I can invite them for lunch in my office.
Yes, Secretary, maybe you have some input.
Yeah, Madam
All
Chair,
these, attached agencies require offices. So,
Madam Chair.
yung sinasabi ng childcare, pare-pareho naman ng daing eh.
Madam Chair.
Miski yung main DSWD, wala opisina eh.
Madam Chair, but if I may, si Yusek Janela and I have been working closely about this issue. Parang chicken and egg ho eh. Gusto na nila mag-hire, pero wala naman hong paglalagyan. Kahit na ayaw ho naman ho namin sila umalis sa aming tanggapan, pero malaki na yung organization nila eh. And if I may make the manifestation na with the help of the good committee, madagdagan rin ho yung allocation nila for, I guess, their MOOE, for them to either rent more offices or capex to build offices. Kasi
Pinawasan rin yung MOE, ang laki eh.
of all the attached agencies, wag naman ho magtampo yung iba na nandito. I think we really have to pay special attention to NACC because bago ho silang ahensya. One of the authors of the law is here, si Senator Hontiveros. It would be such a waste na gumawa tayo ng batas ng bagong ahensya, pero hindi naman natin nilalagay yung sapat na input. So for them to function fully, they really require a lot of help. We've been trying to help
Pero
them.
to avoid the chicken, when clearly the egg precedes the chicken, patulungan na lang natin sa DBM.
DBM, yeah.
Napakasimple naman ang problema. Gawain naman natin yan sa LGU. Madali na yan eh.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Pakiusapan na nila, it shouldn't take a year. Tagal naman kasi walang 5% compliance, nakakahiya naman tayo.
Noted, Madam Chair. We'll make the necessary representations with the help of the committee. Pag-usapan ulit namin ni Yusek Janela.
Thank you. I have a few questions just to get this over with. I hope that in the meantime, Senator Ontiveros and Senator Go, baka masagasaan na rin natin. I just want to get this out of the way, ano? It's been reported that you have 11 or more USECs and 21 ASECs. And then in the office's directory, you only have 12 ASECs. Gaano kadami ba talaga?
Madam
itong
Chair,
ASEC?
I momentarily left. The department has 11, an allocation of 11 USECs. We currently have 9. Now, we have
9?
9.
Why was it announced that USEC Villar's appointed constituted the 11th?
Madam Chair, I don't have that information with me right now, but what I am stating is the facts. We have
So-
9, no? 9? 9.
That's including Emmy?
No, 9. But
So 9.
the department really has...
The recent appointment.
Ma'am,
of
9 na
USEC
lang.
Villar. Teka,
Ma'am, I cannot comment on the appointment because I'm not in the,
It's announced, so was she appointed or not?
none, not yet.
As far as you're concerned,
Not
you're
yet,
not in
none,
receipt.
none.
O sige, 9
But
lang.
9, we have an allocation or a funded,
It's also to give you an opportunity.
Yes, ma'am,
put
to
on
explain.
record.
Ma'am,
Oo,
we have,
put on record kung ilan ba talaga itong mahiwaga.
the department has a budgeted allocation for 11 undersecretaries.
Okay.
This has been vetted by DBM, by COA.
That's including your attached agency.
No, iba ho yung funding allocation talaga nila. There are 9
Oh,
as we speak.
okay.
Now, we have 20 ASECs, but as mentioned, they have all tendered their courtesy resignations, each and every one of them.
Huh?
Because we are right-sizing and we are streamlining. Madam Chair, for the
Ano yung balita na 21?
20 ho yun, ma'am, Madam Chair, not 21.
20 yung allotted, pero 21 appointed. Alin ba
Ma'am,
talaga?
mali lang ho yung report, but 20 yan. But regardless, Madam Chair, all 20 has tendered their courtesy resignations. We're currently streamlining and right-sizing. For the record, Madam Chair, I hope you understand that bago rin, hindi naman ako ganun kabago na, but it took me time to understand the whole organization to be able to fit the job descriptions with the names. So right now, all of them have tendered their courtesy resignation, and we are going to streamline and right-size the department.
Okay, also, the authorized permanent positions are only 3,337, consisting of 193 key positions. Tama ba to? How many are allotted for USEC and ASEC? You already said 9 and 20. This is
11 ho, ma'am. What's allotted is 11 USECs.
sorry, 11 and 20. Pero you have a total number of permanent positions of only 3,337. Tama ba yan? Kasi kanina iba na.
Madam Chair, let me just go back to yung point nyo kanina.
Medyo-
Magkaiba lang yung...
Kasi may 38,037, tapos sabi 30, tapos yung permanent 3,300 lang.
Madam Chair, the number kanina natin, tama ho tayong dalawa in the sense na iba yung cut-off natin. You were given the data na July 31, while what was I was mentioning kanina na
38, actually.
38 was July,
30.
June. Kami ho as of this August 31,
Okay.
it's 37,019.
Okay.
If I may be allowed to just quickly say this, it's one of the bigger departments. And
That's
that,
right.
and that's why in the senior management position, and I said this in the House hearing, we would need a lot of functioning ASECs and USECs. But just the same, we're right-sizing.
Moving forward from the ASEC and USEC media issue, totoo ba yung permanent position lang ninyo sa dinami-dami ng empleyado 3,330?
Yes, ma'am.
Baka konti naman.
Nasaan mo tingin?
Wala pang 1/10?
Yes.
Seryoso kayo? Less than 10% are permanent?
Yes, Madam Chair. The
Loyalty award ng DO na 35 years?
3377. Madam Chair, again, this department kasi palaki siya ng palaki over the years with ad hoc clusters being given to it. For instance, half of our budget, 200 billion kami, roughly. 50% of that is already 4Ps, and 4Ps was a new creation. So over the years, the department kept on growing with but meaning, hindi siya kasabay ng departamento nung ginawa siya. So parang Lego na dikit ng dikit without really adjusting. That's why over the years, we've also been saying, and I'm going to verbalize it now, we are pleading that and we're ready to work with DBM, and we have been working with them. To be fair, they've been very accommodating, but we would really need the help of the good committee to right-size this to what we are currently doing. For instance,
Any reaction from DBM? This is clearly unworkable. This is very, very bad management practice. Nawala pa sa 10% ang permanente. Yung halos lahat, JO at contractual. Ba't nagkaganito to? Hinayaan na lang ng DBM. You have to create new positions, clearly.
Madam Chair, nakalinya for next year for the subject to the evaluation of the DBM, yung mga proposals po nila for reorganization. Kasama na po itong mga ano dito.
Madam Chair,
Parang
we are continually.
ko na to eh. Parang taon-taon ganito rin ang daing natin eh. Nakailang secretary na rin tayo.
Madam Chair,
Wala naman
I may lang
nangyari.
quickly,
Yeah.
something more alarming. We have a whole cluster. We're in charge of the disaster response sa NDRMC law. That whole cluster is all COS. wala ni isang regular sa kanila. No? Yung USEC lang ang in charge. Kasi again, it hasn't been aligned to its current mandate. That's why when there was a raucous about us having so many ASECs to run a bureaucracy of 34,000 or 37,000 spread across 16 regions, and us still helping the BARM in their operations, so to speak, we'll really need a lot.
Ba't ganun? Yung DSWD main, wala kayong permanent. Tapos, ang childcare naman,
Madam, because they were...
daming permanent, di naman mapuno.
Hindi, mapupuno ho nila yan. Wala lang silang tahanan. Bigyan natin sila ng tahanan, mapupuno nila yan. They've been very excited to get nga people in. Madam Chair, because the reason...
But I think they still have problems with DBM. They need to sort out their salary grades and their qualifications, di ba?
Ma'am, Madam Chair, I can only ascertain that they are new creations of
Okay.
law. So, parang mas bago yung mandate nila with clear
Right,
definition.
understood. But sana naman DBM takes into consideration na nakakapagtaka lang. Yung isa, napakadaming permanent na binigay. Yung isa naman, halos walang binigay. Ano ba naman to?
Madam Chair, I agree. I concur.
What other questions, Risa, Bong?
Madam Chair, we were talking about the SLP a while ago. Naputo lang po tayo.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up. I'd like to request some information regarding the 4Ps of Senator Risa. She had some questions, but if I could have on a data sheet the overview of the general impact, the estimated poverty reduction, not just vaccination and nakapagtapos ng high school, and actual employment rates thereafter. Kasi gulong-gulo pa rin ako despite the fact that you said you've changed from proxy means to a new tool. I still don't understand what the impact's been, and that's always been the question. I have no doubt in plenary, yan rin ang itatanong. So paghandaan na natin yan, ano ba talaga impact assessment natin? How many distinct families have been covered? And graduated, not graduated, restored post-COVID, plus post-climate. And year on year kasi, there was an estimate last year when Secretary Tulfo was around that year on year for the number of graduated versus the billions spent on a per head basis, mahigit pa sa 1 million each ang nagastos. Na maraming nagsasabi, binigay na lang sana na yung 1 million sa mga mahihirap, naging milyonaryo pa ang bawat isa. So if you add 2007 to the present, it's billions and billions, ano? So, anong
Madam Chair,
masasabi po natin dyan?
The President, when I assumed the helm, one of the things that he wanted was a full impact assessment, and we're currently procuring it. Unfortunately, we cannot give you a quick and dry right now because it's a big data pool.
Bale na, basta short and dirty lang.
Yeah, we will try our best to churn that out as best as we can. But one thing we can promise the committee,
Plenary at garantisado yan ang tanong.
we will churn the necessary data. But one thing to put on record is we are currently procuring two types of services. One, to look into the effect of 4Ps overall in the anti-poverty, as you mentioned. And
Sabi ko
two,
sa'yo, the World Bank report.
the different components, which one still works and which one doesn't work. Kasi malaki ho yung program components nito, marami. May FDS, may targeting, may...
Ay, sorry. Pero madali lang yan eh. Dalawa lang naman yan eh. Vaccination tsaka educational eh.
Yeah, Madam Chair, yes, will...
Ang problema dyan, it didn't take them out of poverty except on a short-term basis. So that's what we have to rectify.
Madam Chair, if I may put on record, I had a lengthy discussion with Shell Habito. He was always saying to me that...
No, this is World Bank. This is...
Yes, Madam Chair, but we also have been working with other economists, talking to them. And one thing they keep on telling me is, in ending poverty, 4Ps is a big part of it. But we also have to look at, like you said, the holistic anti-poverty game plan of the government.
I think the Mexican and the Brazilian examples are very, very clear. You need to progress from the 4Ps.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Hindi nagtatapos dyan. At
Yes, Madam
saka
Chair.
yung 4Ps mismo, dapat ma-phase out para mapunta na sa SLP, sa iba't iba pang kabuhayan.
Madam Chair, we'll give you a quick and dry, but we'll also give you the output once we procure and they give us all the results as they come along.
To talk about the SLP, that sino ba nagtanong ng SLP?
You were the ones who asked SLP.
pero si Senator Francis kanina, di ba? Yung SLP na simulan. Tapusin na natin yung diskusyon ng SLP, tapos balikan na lang natin yung iba. Sige, yung SLP lang po.
Madam Chair, kanina binabanggit niyo yung mababang utilization rate niya. Paliwanag.
Kasi yung COA report, ang sinasabi, 2.85 of physical targets. My goodness, that's worse than the childcare.
Madam Chair, yung SLPO kasi meron niyang two components.
Difficulty in identifying the poor. They're everywhere.
But, but two, Madam Chair, there's also the social preparation that we give them. So it normally takes them the first half of the year. But admittedly, nadagdagan yung delay nito this year because we recalibrated the program to make it more sustainable. What happened with the SLP kasi ho was, over the years, it's treated like a one-time grant. Wala na masyadong sustainable portion to it. When we walked into the office, we came up with a new memo circular that measures it for 5 years. In between giving of grants, we look into their net income of that endeavor. We look into the gross income, net income, and the formalization. Did they open a savings account? So meaning it's a 5-year plan now that will take into account milestones in the life of that small enterprise.
Sobrang haba naman kaya ng 5 years.
Ma'am,
Mga negosyante kayo, pag nalulugi pa after 5 years, sara na yung negosyo.
Madam Chair, because we are talking
naman tayo?
about informal sector, talagang wala talagang negosyo. The goal there kaya 5 years is, we give them the grant year 1, we monitor them year 2, we give them additional grant year 3, then we monitor them year 4, then on the 5th year they graduate, and hopefully by that time, formal na sila, and we can now turn them over to the Small Business Corporation of DTI. It's a whole process.
You mentioned the catch-up plan. What are the salient points of the catch-up plan? Because this is a heck of a catch-up here.
Madam Chair, one of the things Madam Chair, one of the things is we're done, hopefully, with the social preparation. Not hopefully, we should be done with the social preparation. So
Hindi
now,
pwede mag-vault in yung iba. Andyan naman yung DepEd, Senior High School. Andyan naman yung TESDA. Sila naman expert dyan. Di naman DSWD
Madam Chair, we will expedite the
Kasi kanina sinabi ni Senator Go na maraming pera pa yung AX. Yung SLP, marami pa rin pera dahil ang na-obligate pa lang mga 30%.
Madam Chair, but historically over the years, we've only obligated 97% of it. This year lang talaga nag-slow down because nga we reformatted the program as I mentioned. When I walked in, I put a moratorium on it for 2 months, almost to 3 months. Because we want to reformat it. I couldn't live with myself just to continue it as a giving out and then that's it. Do you have the slide ng CBOL? We'll show you briefly an illustration of what I was talking about, the new form program.
In the meantime, Senator Go also has a follow-up question on SLP, please.
Dagdag ko lang po ito. Secretary, isa sa mga programa po na pinaglaban natin, no? Madagdagan po ng pondo. Ito po SLP. Dahil naniniwala ako sa layunin ng programang ito, makatulong po sa ating mga kababayan na kailangan po ng tulong sa sustainable livelihood. Ang tanong ko po, based po sa experiences ng mga nakausap nating LGUs, yun nga po, medyo mabagal yung implementation ng SLP. Ano bang ginagawa nyo upang maayos ito, na ma-implementa ito ng maayos at sa pag-fulfill po ng purpose ng programang ito? Ano na ho bang accomplishment ng programa? And also to mitigate the adverse effects of the price ceiling imposed on rice to our rice retailers, the DSWD utilized the SLP. Bukod sa rice retailers, alam naman po natin, apektado rin po ang ating mga magsasaka. Maaring baratin sila sa presyo ng mga traders at middlemen. Ano ho bang assistance na ibinibigay ninyo po sa mga magsasaka na apektado po nitong price cap?
Madam Chair, although it's not in my sphere, the recent move of the NFA Council, who I'm a part of, to increase palay buying prices should hopefully address that. It's been approved 2 days ago. DSWD is one of the members of the council. So in looking at assisting farmers, yes, DSWD will look into that other means to help them, but hopefully yung worry natin na babaratin sila, maiwasan o hindi mangyari. Although hindi mangyari, let's look into that. But Yung SLP, Madam Chair, admittedly kaya pagpasok ko, we put a moratorium because medyo mahirap po talaga siya gamitin. Yun ang complaint. Number one, in the identification of beneficiaries. What happens here is, yes, tama nga ho na mukhang mahirap, bibigay sa amin yung listahan, pero nandun kasi sa criteria natin, kailan ma-define as poor. So we have to go through the listahanan list again and look for them there. But if they're not there, pupuntahan pa namin sila to apply another means test to determine. So it's a special provision in the GAA that we are hoping that we can somehow relax. Na we put in other caveats there na kahit wala sa listahanan pero sinertify for instance ng social worker na poor to, hopefully pwede na siyang magamit. Right now kasi kailangan clearly defined as poor siya. And we have to go through the listahan and look for the name of that person. Pag wala siya doon, double handling, we will go to the site of that person, study his house, do a proxy means test again. So it takes time. We're trying to look for ways to shorten that. Two, we cut the processing time from 30 to 45 days. We're now down to 15 days once all the documentation is complete. Pero doon pa lang sa entrada pa lang in identifying the beneficiaries, doon ho kami tumatagal. Admittedly because of that special provision in the GAA.
Salamat at mapabilis sana ito, Mr. Secretary.
You and I, Madam Chair, share the same sentiments. We have to do something about the identification part of it as usual. Pwede up. Madam Chair, this is the new template. If we can just flash it. But briefly, again, it talks about the 5-year monitoring. Kasi we don't want the SLP to be another dole out and then goodbye. We want it to be monitored into a 5-year program. Madam Chair, the reason there being kasi sobrang informal to, some of them are starting from nothing, so we really have to talk about savings, talk about from scratch. Unfortunately, DTI, for instance, they can't just go to DTI and get the grant there because hindi sila magko-qualify doon. DTI is for formal. So the goal here is to turn an informal entrepreneur into something more formal. Hopefully, mapasa na namin sila sa DTI in the long run. It's a, again, whole of nation approach in trying to teach people to earn a living.
So if you could just give us the updated figures for SLP, because right now they're miserable. So I'd like to improve and make your budget look a little bit better.
Madam Chair, we will submit.
Mas mabuti-buti kesa dito.
Madam Chair,
Pagkain.
it's already moved to 30%, no?
Kaya nga,
37%. And it'll get faster because tapos na kami sa social prep, tapos na kami sa identification, so we should be able to zoom in.
Fourth quarter din, Rex, paano ba yan?
Madam Chair, again, for the record, admittedly, part of that was the moratorium I put in for 2 to 3 months.
Well, that's entirely justified.
Yeah.
Yung kalahi seeds, yun nga, maliwanag rin na kalahi seeds sa NCDDP, ano ba yan, is reduced by 46% almost.
Madam Chair,
Menu of projects, kasi ang sama rin ng performance nito eh.
Madam Chair, we've also speeded up already. In fact, the Kalahi Seeds AF component has already Kalahi Seeds. Hindi ito, mali po.
And while we're at it, di ba you sent us a letter September 15 requesting the transfer of funding from the implementation of the Kapit Bisig Laban sa Kahirapan, Kalahi Seeds NCDDP AF from the programmed and appropriation to the unprogrammed. Maybe you can answer
Okay,
this.
Madam Chair,
batch of
si
Kalahi
AF,
questions.
Kalahi is quite complicated in the sense, as you well know, marami siyang subcomponent.
Yun na nga.
Merong additional financing, merong cash for work, merong pamana, merong...
Ang tagal na kasi niyan, tapos papalit-palit, nagmo-morph siya over time eh.
Madam Chair, for the bigger one, I'm talking about the AF, yung Kalahi Seeds, the original. It's already in its closing year next year. Meaning we already got approval from the ICC Secretariat that the project will be extended for 1 year. Yung loaning group, NEDA, DOF, yeah. So they already approved the project extension for 1 year. Sunset na ho kasi to. We're just using up the remainder of the funds, which is around 3-point-something billion. So rather than putting it in a program, we want it put directly as a project component. That's why we're requesting to revive the line item for AF kasi wala siya eh. Kasi it was supposed to end this year. But meron pang 3 billion na natitira, so we want to use it for next year and then terminate the program already. The program's on its closing years.
For the letter,
Yes, to us to
you want to put it to unprogrammed?
no, from unprogrammed to project.
Baliktad ang narito. Okay, unprogrammed to project and the project will be AF pa rin?
AF, ma'am, because that's the last round of the loan proceeds. It's a multi-year loan that will end na by dapat this year, but we just asked for one more year extension because all the sub-projects have been submitted. We just need to implement them.
I see. What's the right? What's the advantage? You can actually apply it to something as opposed. Is that what?
Because if it's
what are you trying to do? I'm a little.
Madam, okay. Dapat may line item ho talaga na AF.
Wala eh.
Nawala. Kasi nga dapat last year niya na this year. But because may natira pang pondo ho siya, loan ho to eh. Pwede pa natin gamitin for the sub-projects of the communities. Now, kung babalik kasi siya sa unprogrammed, to create next year what happened, minsan nadidelay yung downloading to the department. That's one of the delays this year.
So you
Because-
want to go to. You want to restore the AF line item and apply
The 3 billion that's left.
3 billion that's there. Okay.
So that all the projects kasi, the proposals of the community is already in, we just need to implement
We are
them.
assuming therefore that the project conclusion on June 2024 is not happening.
Is happening.
Is happening.
That's why we need a home for it.
So wait, when extension from.
Kasi last year na ho dapat ngayon eh. So that
years.
is the extension, 2024.
2023 to 24 is the extension.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Gulo talaga itong kalahi eh. Kasi parating dagdag ng dagdag tapos.
Nadagdagan ho ng iba siyang component at iba-iba rin yung fund source niya.
Iba yung sa fund source at iba rin yung timeline.
Yeah, meron hong cash for work, meron hong BP2, meron na dumami na ho siya.
Okay. I think we go back to our senators who are here, no? I've more or less cleared. Kalahi pa rin. Ayan pa rin.
Kalahi lang po, Secretary Rex, no? Kalahi Seeds was given priority during the PRRD time by providing more budget. The objective of Kalahi Seeds is to reduce poverty by enabling barangays to become more resilient and responsive to the needs of the poor residents. It does this by increasing access to basic services, social capital, and watershed protection, and by promoting good governance. Ilang barangays na po ang nakabenepisyo ng programa at ilan po ang target na matulungan po ng Kalahi Seeds sa darating na taon? At sa taong ito po, ilang percent na po ang infrastructure projects? Hindi ba ito duplication sa mga proyektong ilalim po ng DA at DPWH in terms of farm-to-market roads?
Okay, Madam Chair, there are 21,250 barangays that have already benefited in the lifespan of Kalahi. 1,030 municipalities spread across 73 provinces, and the total beneficiaries of household spanning 13.6 million. This runs around 15 regions, so it's almost equitable everywhere. Wala lang sa NCR ho yan dahil highly urbanized ang NCR. Now, kung ang tanong ho nyo, if it's replicating what the other departments are doing, unfortunately, this is a loan that we've inherited. This is a very, very, very old loan. And it really allowed a open menu. It opened an open menu. But ang maganda ho sa open menu nito, sila mismo ang pumipili ng kanilang pangangailangan with the necessary performance-based indicator and counterparting. May taya ho sila sa programa. While as to the other programs of the national government, top to bottom yun, ito from the community paakyat.
So, ilan na hong completed na tapos na po dito? And ongoing?
Roughly around the spread of its lifespan, 69,000 sub-projects have been completed in those geographic areas I mentioned.
Salamat, Sir.
Kaya marami ho to kasi maliliit ho siya, Madam Chair. Sometimes they're 5 million, 20 million, no more than 20 million.
Okay, any questions? We were just talking here kasi with Senator Ontiveros, we both have an advocacy to resolve the teenage pregnancy percentages in the Philippines that are among the highest in Asia. And we're confused as to the reason for the removal of the budget of the social protection program for adolescent mothers and their children. Ba't natanggal yun?
Chair, it's a congressional initiative, di ba? Na pinasok. Tapos nawala this year, di ba? Yes. Di ba congressional initiative yan? Nawala this year, di ba? Madam Chair, it's a CI that you all put and hopefully you can put back this year.
Yes, but not everything that the Congress inserts is wrong.
No,
Okay.
Madam Chair, we have a program.
Does not- No, but I mean to say, even in the in the writing of the NEP, they have to consider also the insertion.
We put it back. All our budgets we put in our tier 2, Madam Chair. In fact, asking for more.
Sa DPCC natanggal.
Oh, yes, Madam Chair.
Lahat ng CI tinanggal kasi, no? Ganun ba yun? Lahat ng CI?
Madam Chair, yes.
Dapat hindi naman ganun, ano? Pero, anyway, it's a matter of concern, eh. And were you told, aside from the fact that it was a legislative insertion, were you given any reason why it was removed?
Madam Chair, the program is alive. It's a running program that we have in the department that we work with PopCom. And we want to grow the...
So you derived the PopCom budget. What are you using to fund it if the project's alive?
Madam, it's meant to really... it's 50-50. It's meant to finance our teenage mothers. It's protecting them. Protecting is the program name. This is a 10 million allocation that was removed. And the program there is really assisting our teenage mothers. We want to grow the program. In fact, we are seeking help from the committee again to augment it, hopefully, so that we come up with more preventive programs rather than reactive programs. That's what the department is looking for.
And perhaps the more appropriate partner would be DepEd and CHED.
Yes, Madam Chair. But with the 10 million allocation, I'm not sure if it will go very far.
Yeah, so the 10 million was an insertion. There's nothing in your regular budget. Is that what you're
Madam
saying?
Chair, it's not in a regular budget, but it doesn't preclude us from using our other social protection budgets from helping our teenage mothers, which we do all the time in our regional offices. But the utilization of this is 50% by PopCom, which they are having a bit of a challenge utilizing.
Bakit?
Madam Chair, I would rather let them answer it because they're not an attached agency of ours, so I can't answer for them.
Right, okay, that's fair. Nevertheless, the 10 million is the portion that's allocated to you? Paghahatian pa ninyo yan.
Ma'am, Madam, it's a shared 10 million.
Ha? Yeah,
It's a
hati
shared-
pa yan sa DSWD, so 5 plus 5 pa kayo niyan.
Yes, and Madam Chair,
I mean, the reason is...
Madam Chair, just for the record, we get 6 million and they get 4 million.
Mali. Okay, wow. Ating hindi kapatid, malit na nga. Okay. At hindi, nagtataka lang ako because teenage pregnancy has been cited not only as a health hazard or an adolescent problem, but as an economic development problem in the country because it's so prevalent. So nagtaka lang ako pa tinanggal.
We actually proposed 37 million for that program to keep it running.
And then it was removed at tier 2, you said?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, yeah. All right, Senator Ontiveros, you had something to add.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you to the Chair for bringing this up. I actually have a pending bill, Teenage Pregnancy Prevention Bill. And the Chair is a co-author as well. Preventive in terms of comprehensive sexuality education and also social protection. Kung maging teenage parent pa rin, at least yung training in parenting and then also health services, support na makapagbalik-aral, magtapos, and be able to get a second, good start in life. At wag mag-repeat teenage pregnancy. So, but we noted what the Secretary said about the augmentation requested. Dahil sinabi nga, as the Chair also mentioned, sinabi ng PopCom, it's a social emergency or a crisis, lalo na simula nung pandemic. So, through the leadership of the Chair also, I'm sure our committee will do what we can para mabigyan naman ng dissenting funding yung programa, both ng PopCom at ng DSWD for to prevent and respond to teenage pregnancies. So I just have one last follow-up question about, if I may proceed, Madam Chair, yung mga huling tanong ko.
Madam Chair, I
Madam
don't mean
Yes,
to be rude,
Mr.
but if I
Secretary.
can just get a 1-minute suspension to use the, the toilet. Thank you,
Of course.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Is there anyone else who would be prepared to answer at this point? Ano pa
It's
ba?
on the, one last, Madam
Yeah.
Chair, on the 4Ps, tapos
Oh, yung
one
sa
or
4Ps.
two questions each on
Who's the program
4 other
director now
topics.
for Peace? Andito naman si Yusek Vilma.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yusek, yung huling tanong ko na lang kanina kay Sec, ano yung sense ng department tungkol sa House Bill 8497, tungkol sa pagdagdag ng adult education component sa kasalukuyang 4Ps by way of 3 tracks, yung ALS, yung Micro-Enterprise Enhancement Skills Training, at saka yung TESDA, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ay, sorry. Yusek Vilma.
Yeah, currently we do not have adult education in its regular form. However, we have the family development sessions where we conduct lectures on microfinancing, parenting, and other social issues that interest the group or that are needed. So we can provide also we can submit a report on the DSWD's contents for family development sessions because I'm sure that much of the concerns are already covered in the family development sessions.
Salamat, Madam Chair, Yusek Vilma. Siguro kahit in writing na rin lamang yung tinatanong ko rin pong anong tingin ng department sa House Bill 8497. Kahit in writing na lang po through
Yes.
the chair bago po yung...
Madam Chair, yeah, we will submit our position paper on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yusek.
Salamat,
Is
Chair.
there any other questions also
Ye-
from Senator Ontiveros?
Yes, Madam Chair. I just have 1 or 2 questions more on 4 other topics, so maybe 11 to 15 minutes or 10 to 15 minutes. Thank you, Chair. On the expanded solo parents welfare law, 2 years after RA 11861 or the Expanded Solo Parents Welfare Act was passed and the year after the IRRs were signed, mari po bang makakuha ng ilang feedback mula sa department tungkol sa status nung implementasyon ng batas? Halimbawa, nakapag-coordinate na po ba ang DSWD sa DILG at sa assistance din po ng DICT sa pag-establish at pag-maintain ng centralized database ng solo parents, Madam Chair?
Madam Chair, if you just allow me to pull up my notes real quickly. There. Madam Chair, for the update, all the member agencies have already drafted their guidelines, which is for approval in the individual agencies, and we will start consolidating all of those in a discussion on October 4. Thereafter, for the unified database, data is already being harmonized by DILG and DSWD, given that it's coming from multiple local government sources. One thing for sure, though, is on September 25, so that's in a couple of days, we are going to meet them, DILG, and actively engage them in making sure that we come up with a harmonized national database as prescribed by law.
Thank you very much, good Secretary. I also ask this question since DBM has already issued local budget memorandum number 87 last June 9, reminding the local chief executives and other relevant local government personnel of their budgetary mandate. Since the law provides that cities and municipalities shall allocate a monthly cash subsidy of 1,000 pesos for solo parents earning minimum wage and below. So, salamat, Secretary. Yun lang po on the expanded solo parents welfare law, Madam Chair. Sa National Authority on Childcare, kay Yusek Janela, I had a couple of questions pero nasagot na yung isa. yung dahilan kung saan nagka-problema at hindi napunan pa yung mga plantilla positions. Opo. So, isa na lang na follow-up question. Paano nito naapektuhan yung trabaho ng agency, ng authority?
Actually po, ginagawa naman po namin yung lahat. We exhaust all efforts para po ma-reach po namin yung GAA targets namin. And, nasa yung GAA targets natin? And, as of now po, nare-reach naman po namin. Although talagang overwork na rin po yung aming mga social workers dahil konti lang din po sila. At hindi po namin, yun nga po, since nag-hire pa lang po kami ngayon, hindi rin po namin alam saan po namin sila ilalagay, Madam Chair.
Pero ang update nyo sa amin sa komite ay you are exerting all efforts, the authority is exerting all efforts to reach GAA targets. And is the authority reaching the GAA targets for 2023?
Yes po, for domestic adoption, 97 order of adoption were issued from January to August 2023. And for inter-country adoption, 79 children entrusted to foreign adoptive parents from January to August 2023.
All right, thank you very much, Yusek Janela.
Thank you po.
Opo. Kung meron mang follow-up, I can follow it up in writing through the chair.
Ask lang the boring administrative question. Can you provide an update on the transfer of DSWD programs on childcare to NACC? Kasi that was a matter transiting last year. We need to find out the programs, the personnel, the funding. Paano naglipatan and at what stage are we? 100% na ba?
Everything has been transferred na po from DSWD to NACC po, including the domestic adoption and all other alternative childcare programs, Madam Chair.
So tapos na yun, wala nang natitira. There's the NACC is
Is handling everything na po.
as an independent entity na ba?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Chair, I think they'll function even better with offices.
I think
Thank you, Sec.
function better with offices. All of you have no offices? Oh, well, most of you don't have offices. Sige, okay. Yes, Senator Antiveros.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Moving on to just a couple of questions on the social pension for senior citizens. So while I certainly advocate still for the universal social pension for our senior citizens, I'm happy to note that as our chair also told us when we were also working on what she sponsored successfully already about the centenarians law, that just yesterday, that the budgetary requirement for the social pension for indigent senior citizens has been achieved for fiscal year 2024. So the amount of almost 50 billion pesos covers a little over 4 million indigent senior citizens. Maaari po bang malaman kung bukod dun sa 4.1 million indigent beneficiaries, kung meron pa pong ibang indigent seniors na hindi pa naisama sa listahan? At kung mayroon, ilan sila? Oo, and ano yung plano ng department na gawin para sa kanila? Yes, Chair.
Madam Chair, like the good senator has mentioned, we are also pushing, our position is for universal. Off the get-go, I mentioned that to the chairman. The current wait list is close to 500,000 Filipinos. And these are the ones that approached us. And I'm sure the local government units know even of more. This is not reflective of what's on the ground.
And ano pong plano ng department para sa halos 500,000 na iyon?
Well, Madam Chair, we use our different modalities like the assistance to individuals in crisis situation, but it will be on a crisis situation. Unfortunately, there are no other mechanisms in the department for a continued sustained social pension program unless Congress will do so.
Yeah, actually, as a general rule, the DSWD provides the AIX to the senior citizens na may utang pa tayo ng lampas 3 billion. Tapos dun sa solo parents, yung bill natin na unfunded. At higit sa lahat, yung pinakakawawa na walang tinatanggap talaga, yung PWD. So as a rule, ang ginagawa ng DSWD, from my observation,
AIX.
yung 3 yun, tinututukan ng AIX.
So I guess ano yon, parang pantawid yung AIX until Congress can
Yes.
legislate. Ayuda na nga, pantawid, ayuda pa. Opo. So, but it's good to be reminded even by the executive of yung mutual appreciation we have for each other's work across the two branches na gusto naman nating mag-complement sa isa't isa. And lastly po, tungkol di pa rin dito sa ating senior citizens, as I am delighted with the increase in our senior citizen social pension, it also comes with the hope that its distribution will encounter the most minimal of challenges. I know that by virtue of RA 11350, that created the National Commission of Senior Citizens, senior citizen-related functions and programs of the department shall be transferred to the NCSC. Maaari nyo bang ilahad sa komite kung ano na ang status ng transition ng mga programs and functions mula sa department papuntang NCSC? By 2026, ang lapit na kung November. And by 2026, just 2 years after November, the NCSC shall be fully in charge of running the social pension program. Paano po tinutulungan ng department ng NCSC na maghanda sa napakalaking trabahong ito, Madam?
Madam Chair, just as a record, for the record, for 2022, 2023, even if the social pension is still with us, we were able to do 100% obligation on that. Right now, as we speak, it's at 74.52. They're paid semestrally, so the balance should be paid come end of the year. But when talking about the NCSC, we have had numerous meetings with them. In fact, I personally sought out the chairman early part when I was appointed, and we gave them a engagement roadmap where these are milestones that we want them to achieve before we pass the ball to them. Madali naman ho kasing ilipat at ilipat, pero pag hindi sila handang sumalo at sumabog yung programa, kawawang ating mga matatanda. Unfortunately, at this point in time, despite numerous meetings, though the engagement plan has not been fully complied with, we gave them our list of conditions. For instance, basic conditions. Case in point, they are structured in 8 clustered regions while we do 16. Doon pa lang ho mahihirapan na. They don't have physical offices, they don't have staff, they don't have a whole lot. So us passing the responsibility to them.
The commissioners are incomplete.
Yes. And they're even structured in clustered regions. So how can they administer the region operations oversee the region operations if they are structured that way? And from my understanding, they just took in their executive director recently, from my understanding. So a lot is to be desired for the receiving party, but the DSWD doesn't feel that they are ready to do so.
But even that executive director, I noticed is only in acting capacity. So he's unable to initiate anything new.
Without a functioning bureaucracy, without physical offices, without the right structure, I think we're waiting for a disaster to happen if we pass on the responsibility to them. So it is our responsibility to make sure that this program runs. And in terms of distribution, Madam Chair, as I mentioned, the data is quite well and robust, but we are looking at other alternatives to make it even better. For instance, most of these senior citizens are cash card holders from the UCT program before. So we're going to try to talk to Land Bank to make it yung TCT, Targeted Cash Transfer. So we're going to push for the utilization of those cash cards so that ma-automate na rin natin to or point-to-point, contactless, so to speak, na distribution. Yeah.
If Senator Ontiveros will allow, can we have na lang yung breakdown, yung actual information ulit, updated, kasi yung nasa amin hanggang June lang.
Yes.
Status ng program ng social pension.
Madam Chair.
Yung luma, yung 500, tapos yung buong 1,000, madali yung 1,000 kasi zero pang nabibigay. At saka yung 2024 anticipated para kompleto kami. And hindi ba may backlog yung social pension nasa 3B, naalala ko. At pwede nating i-update kung tama o hindi.
Madam Chair, we will do as directed.
Sige, thank you very much kasi kulang-kulang yata to eh. May tanong ako, bakit nasa 60% lagi yung implementation of the centenarians? Nasa 62% lang, bakit may buwang ng 38? Ilan lang naman sila, 1,600 lang, hindi pa nabibigay.
Hindi, centenarian.
Hindi na tayo social pension, ginukulo ko lang yung buhay niya.
Tinanong ko na yun kanina. Utilization. Kanina mo pa binibigay sa akin. Ito. Madam Chair, for 2022, as of December 31, the utilization is at 99.02. Yes. And this year, it's 77.67 as we speak.
Okay, if you can give me the record so that we're updated, our documents only indicate 62%. Eh, nakaka-nervous kasi 100 years old na yan, hindi na makakapagintay.
Madam Chair, I think we're talking about different cutoffs kasi ito, this one's more current at
That's correct.
August 31. We will make sure that we send you all the necessary
Update na lang.
documents.
Thanks. Sige. So, yung tinatanong ni Senator Risa, yung national senior citizens, ang sabi kasi sa amin, magta-transit sila by November 2023. Eh, bukas makalawa na yan, and you're saying, and we are aware, na incomplete pa ang appointments, acting capacity lang. Paano ba to?
Madam
Ano
Chair,
kaya ang lilipat natin at alin ang hindi na natin maasahan muna na maaring lipatin?
Madam Chair, the chairman of NCSC is a friend. He was also a former mayor and he's very capable. But I think there are institutional or structural deficiencies that we have to address first. And kung tatanong niyo bluntly, sa punto na to, sa palagay namin, wala pa kaming maililipat sa kanila.
Wala.
In fact, Madam Chair, if I may just share, there's a notion in the department from our policy group that, and I am not one to tell the legislators what to do, that we may have to revisit the law itself and see whatever structural changes we can do to help them hasten
Actually,
the
there's-
stepping up
There's an even more radical notion that in fact,
policy making.
we should stop farming out all
Resp-
the push for right sizing. Parang naman this is the opposite, ano? Parang kabalikan.
That's something that we agree in, Madam Chair. To the same degree, most of our attached agencies are policy in nature. They can develop their expertise in policy making while the implementation will remain with the department.
So you feel personally, I won't peg you to this, but it's something that we've discussed even with the minority leader, that perhaps the National Senior Citizens Council should be a policy making body as well, like the childcare and other, not
Now, NACC is a
the-
functioning
the other one.
NCIP.
No, the NCIP and the
NAPC,
Council for the
PCW,
Welfare of Children, yung iba na talagang policy making. Ganun ba dapat sa tingin mo, having had an overview, ganun ba dapat yung senior citizens? Yung implementation, wag na. Yung policy formulation, okay.
Personally, yes, Madam Chair, because meron ng institutional knowledge yung department. May expertise na yung mga empleyado namin sa senior citizen affairs.
Quite apart from the expertise, I think the infrastructure is there.
Yeah.
You have the logistical framework. You don't need to have offices for every little distribution. You don't need another set of people. You don't need more vehicles. We have so few na nga. I mean, it goes.
That is correct. That is correct, Madam Chair. That is a notion that we welcome if the good legislators will want to pursue that.
Okay.
One last, Madam Chair, salamat. So, I think very important yung discussion about the NCSC vis-a-vis the DSWD. Baka pwede rin po, Secretary, humingi ng kopya ng inyong engagement plan. And if there's any way, lalo na sa red letter dates ng November this year, tapos yung 2026, na nakikita nyo pang short of the review and amendment of the law itself, na magawa pa rin yung some kind of a turnover, if at all still possible.
Madam Chair, we will gladly furnish you that engagement plan that we gave them early part of this year when we took the helm. But we would also want to put on record that one thing that they can do is create those regional offices. Break it from the clustered offices. We've already gone with them to DBM and made joint representation that they should set up the regional offices. Kasi doon palang basic na yun eh. We're operating in 16 regions and they're operating in 8 clusters.
Ang gulo nga nung BARM eh. Hindi ko nga maintindihan. Kasali pero hindi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So yung huling paksa ko na lang, I just have 2, 3 questions about this. On the NCIP, I see the Chair Jennifer Pias Sibuglas is here. Ma'am, and a mining issue in Gutalak, Zamboanga del Norte. It's been brought to my attention by the local government of Gutalak, the Diocese of Dipolog, an ongoing dispute involving a mining exploration project in that municipality since 2021. The land involved covers 28 barangays, all of which are located within the ancestral domain claim of indigenous people. The mining company involved, Florgen Mar Mining and Development Corporation, was issued an exploratory permit in April 2022 without going through the necessary free, prior, and informed consent process as mandated by the IBRA. The mining company continues to use this permit to conduct considerable earth movement and mountain quarrying activities, land development and building construction in the area. While I understand that the NCIP provincial office in Dipolog City questioned the Region 9 office of the Mines and Geosciences Bureau of DNR about such issuance without the certification of precondition from the commission, mari po bang malaman bakit nagpatuloy pa rin ang commission sa paggawa ng belated na FPIC process at nag-issue pa ng certification precondition samantalang nilabag na po yung batas, yung IPRA mula sa simula. At bago nagdesisyon po yung commission en banc na mag-issue niyang certification precondition, ano pang ibang FPIC processes in-undergo itong kasong ito, Madam Chair?
Thank you, Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, Jennifer Sibuglas is recognized.
Yeah, bago ko po sagutin yung katanungan ni Senator Antiveros, nais ko munang gamitin ang pagkakataong ito na pasalamatan ng ating mahal na Pangulo sa pagtalaga po sa akin bilang tagapamahala po ng Pambansang Komisyon ng Katutubong Pilipino o NCIP almost 10 days ago. So, dun po sa katanungan nyo, Senator Antiveros, kung mamarapatin po ay nais ko rin pong i-request ang aking kasama na komisyonado po ng area kung saan po kayo ay may concern. Ako po, ang aki pong kinakatawan ay ang Region 12 or ang Central Mindanao, which is Region 12. So si Commissioner Pinky Grace Pareha, who is the concerned ethnographic commissioner of Region 9, is privy regarding your concern, Madam Chair. Thank you very much.
Yes, Madam Chair, salamat. Si Commissioner, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. What the NCIP issued was a certification precondition for the exploration. There was no application for the utilization yet with the NCIP, Madam Chair. Exploration lang po na stage yung na-issuehan natin ng CP po. Thank you.
Salamat, Commissioner. But still, hindi po ba ay nilabag yung batas mula sa simula eh? So kahit yung CP para sa exploration, bakit po in-issue pa rin?
During the deliberation of the CP application for the exploration permit, Madam Chair, there was no complaints that we received regarding the activities of Florgen Mar in the area, Madam Chair. So we approved po the exploration CP application, Madam Chair.
Salamat, Madam Chair. At ano pang ibang FPIC process in-undergo itong kasong ito?
We have not yet received their application for CP for the utilization already, Madam Chair. Doon pa lang po sa EXPA.
So, bukod dun sa belated na FPIC process bago na issue yung CP for exploration. Wala na pong ibang dagdag na FPIC process ang isinasagawa bago pa man makatanggap ng application para sa CP utilization.
I understand the FPAC for the CP application doon na sa utilization is ongoing po doon sa provincial office natin, Madam Chair. It has not yet reached the central office for deliberation po.
Hindi pa po umabot sa central office ng commission pero umabot na po sa regional office nyo?
Sa provincial, I understand sa provincial office pa po, Madam Chair. Yung FPIC po.
Sa provincial po umabot na. Alright, salamat po. Just for the record, Madam Chair, and in support actually of the mandate of the NCIP, for the record, may mga official communications na po sa pagitan ng LGU Gutalak at yung NCIP tungkol sa isyung ito. I refer to communications dated 22 October 2022 mula sa NCIP Acting Regional Director papunta sa NCIP Provincial Officer regarding a suspension of Gutalak, Baligian, Siocon ancestral domain activities until a stakeholders meeting is conducted in November 2022. Gayon din, November 16, 2022, communication po mula kay Mayor Eddie Justin Kimbo sa NCIP Region 9 at copy furnished then NCIP Chair Kapuyan na nag-identify ng discrepancies sa exploration permit tulad ng absence at that time ng certification precondition. And then 14th April 2023, communication mula kay dating Chair Kapuyan kay Mayor Kimbo informing the mayor that on 23 February 2023, the Commission unbanked approved the certification precondition for mining exploration only, as current Chair Sibugla said, and authorized the Chair to sign the MOA on behalf of the NCIP. So just for the record, Madam Chair, mayroon pong mga communications mula sa LGU Gutalak at gayon din mula sa NCIP Acting Regional Director at kay NCIP Chair Kapuyan. So lastly, Madam Chair, maaari po bang humingi sa NCIP, i-provide po yung aming komite ng full report opo, sa lahat ng proseso na in-undertake ng commission kaugnay po ng kasong ito. Maaari po ba, Chair Sibuglas?
Madam Chair, if I may respond. We submit to the request and the instruction of the Honorable Antiveros. We will submit the report as soon as possible time. Rest assured, Madam Chair, that we will take this very seriously and act accordingly. Thank you very much po.
Maraming salamat din po, Chair Sibuglas at Commissioner. I'm afraid I have the impression that this particular process, this particular case has not started well. At alam naman natin na ang pangunahin o solong constituency ng NCIP ay yung ating mga katutubong Filipino, kasama yung mga lumad sa Mindanao. Hayaan po natin ang MGB mag-champion sa mga mining companies kasi may kanya-kanya namang constituency at stakeholders ang bawat ahensya ng gobyerno, and each constituency deserves equal 100% representation on the part of their champions within government. Napakalakas po ng IPRA. There have been times, too many times in the past na hindi ito ganap na ginamit talaga alang-alang sa mga katutubo kahit pa ng komisyon. But in the Senate, in Congress, we continue to keep faith with NCIP, kaya po't nilalapit namin ang ganitong mga kaso. You have the full constitutional and legal mandate to fight beside the indigenous peoples for their rights under the IPRA. So, salamat po, Chair at Commissioner. Maraming salamat, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Ontiveros. Senator Go and I will just go through very quickly the remaining administrative matters and certain agencies or attached groups that have not completely been dealt with. I don't know if I didn't quite get it, but let me go back to the feeding program. 5.2 billion in 2023, 4 billion in 2024. We talked about this extensively, but at the same time, hindi pa natin natumbukan dahilan kung bakit na-reduce na napakalaki. Ano nga ba
Madam
yun?
Chair, that's the CI also.
That's CI na naman. Balik CI na naman yan.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Like I said, not everything that comes from Congress is bad. Certainly, we are aware of the rising rates of
But we would really welcome its return and
Yun na nga eh.
augmentation.
O sige, so it's simply because it was an insertion, so it was deleted outright.
Correct, Madam Chair.
Okay. Secondly, why is this occurring that the disaster response program is once again decreased from 2.3, which was clearly inadequate, to 1.868? And also, the reason that DBM gave me upon query was that the disbursement rate was less than half. You're at 46.45%.
Madam Chair, one, those are also insertions that disappeared, but the disbursement rate, we have to take into account that we use the QRF. So whenever it's replenished, it goes to 100% again. So this,
Understood. So
nagagamit ho namin yan.
my question is, can we have a more orderly presentation? Ilang beses na ba na-replenish yan?
For our side 5 times, we've already drawn that.
2020.
For just 2023.
So 2023, siguro that's what you need to give me, the drawdowns, the topping up, and the dates.
Will
And,
do, Madam Chair.
That will explain the 46% kasi may last quarter ka pa. Kasi walang indicated dito sa LBRMO submission eh.
We will, Madam Chair.
Sige, and then perhaps you can also identify in that the components that will benefit from additional budget.
We'll do so, Madam Chair.
Yeah, so that's what I need. Isa pa, may programa rito hindi nabanggit, and that is the Pamana program for interventions in cases of conflict areas. 2011-2016, embodied in the PDP up to 2022. It has 351 million for 2024. What were its accomplishments, given that it was launched in 2011? And how many communities are actually reached? How does it duplicate or dovetail with the NTF, LCAC, and other programs of government?
Madam Chair, the program in a nutshell, we get the list from the certification ng LCAC. So they identify the business.
This is the DSWD share in the NTF, LCAC basket of goods?
Correct, Madam
Ba yun?
Chair. It is in our budget, but the beneficiaries for the former combatants come from the, not LCAC, Madam Chair, but forgive me, it's more of the OPAPRU.
Yeah.
OPAPRU.
Hindi, ang nalilito kasi ako, 2011 pa to. Yung NTF LCAC was a Duterte initiative. 2011 pa to. So, ibig sabihin, dito bagong pera, walang karagdagan?
Madam Chair, it is replenished kasi we use it for former
I understand that it's replenished, but ang sinasabi ko, parang kunwari lang nadagdagan sa NTF LCAC, pero lumang programa.
No, Madam Chair, forgive me for my error. That the list is actually from OPAPRU. This is a totally different program from the budget of LCAC.
Yun na nga, but the question arises, isn't this a duplication? You have the same target beneficiaries, you have the same purpose.
Madam Chair, I would
We
like
have
to think of it as
address.
complementary again.
Ba't hindi na lang kayo ilagay sa NTF LCAC? Kasi
Madam-
nga, ang parehong-pareho eh. Isolated, hard to reach, conflict-affected, vulnerable areas, part of peace and security in the PDP, presently embodied in attaining just and lasting peace. Puro NTF LCAC.
Madam Chair, in this program, we not only talk about the former NPA areas, but rather we also talk about MNLF, MILF areas, other combatant areas, to include as well former yung areas infested by Abu Sayyaf. So this one is more diverse in nature in its mandate. Further to that,
Sige,
Madam.
in a very simplistic way, could you provide a matrix showing me NTF-LCAC versus Pamana? Pakisubmit na lang po dahil para sa akin, exactly what you said is exactly what occurs in the NTF-LCAC.
Will do, Madam Chair.
I have to be shown the difference. I can't see the distinction. Pareho lang kasi. Very diverse na rin ang NTF-LCAC. Ba't hindi pagkaisa?
And one more thing, Madam Chair, this is administered also by case managers namin na social workers. So they look at the whole human dimension of a former combatant's needs.
Understood, but that's the same story that NTF-LCAC.
Wala ata silang social...
Participation as DSWD sa NTF.
Madam Chair, we sit also. I'm in fact part of the LCAC.
Bakit hindi na lang ito gawin contribution ninyo sa NTF-LCAC para lumaki-laki naman ang...
Madam, it is when I believe, I'm not sure if they do present to the Senate. I think part of their presentation is what the member agencies put on the table.
Yes, but this is listed as a separate and discrete fund.
Correct, Madam Chair.
So that's why nagugulan ako. Otherwise, it should be embodied. Di ba maraming participants naman yon? May DA, may TESDA, may kung ano-ano. Pero ito, parang hiniwalay pa, maliban pa sa NTF-LCAC. Ba't hindi pagkaisa?
Madam Chair, we'll put it in a matrix for you to better appreciate it and
Sa
submit it accordingly.
NTF na lang, para minsana na lang. Kasi, isa pa, it's 2011. This far precedes the NTF-LCAC. So, the date is different from NTF-LCAC. Baka naman na-supersede na yan in purpose and objective by the NTF.
Madam Chair, what we'll do is for better appreciation, we'll do it on a side-to-side, side-by-side matrix for your
Also,
appreciation.
ano ba nagawa niya? Tagal na noong 2011.
Madam Chair, it provides...
Hindi pa ba natatapos yung mga conflict-afflicted areas? Hindi pa ba natatapos yan?
But-
I mean to say, dapat na, exactly like 4Ps, dapat na-graduate na siya to another level.
Madam Chair, for instance, in the case of the former MNLF areas, mas post yan ngayon na lang, recent occurrence yan, post-BARM. So we are still working in those areas. These are new conflict areas na drawn from more recent government peace initiatives. So noong 2011, iba yung communities that they were servicing. Now we've graduated to other communities that have been, one, declared insurgency-free, two, yung mga former BARM areas.
I suppose this is like the landscape of nutrition programs. It's a bit confused.
Yeah, but I'm sure what we will do...
Parang, mas maganda sana kung meron tayong overview at naintindihan natin anong papel ng Pamana, anong papel ng NTF-LCAC, kinakailangan pa ba sila?
But I'm sure what we will do is furnish the committee a matrix, not just of this program, but as well as the feeding program, as we mentioned it a while ago. Para makita ho natin yung
Those
continuity.
are, a rather messy scene.
Correct. Madam Chair, we'll do as directed.
O sige, finally and at last, qualified opinion was delivered by the COA. Are there any updates on the COA? Have you worked on it since? Kasi they only gave a qualified opinion. So perhaps you can submit or your accountants can submit that you have taken steps to address the audit findings.
We will, Madam Chair, the GASG group is here. We will furnish the committee also the individual answers and action steps in all those findings.
Okay. I think Senator Ontiveros wants to add something at may nakalimutan ako sa balik probinsya yung program ni Senator ko pala. Isa pa pala yun na hindi na pag-usapan. Yes, Senator Ontiveros.
Salamat, Madam Chair. Last two follows up sa NCIP kay Chair Sibuglas. Chair, ano pong mga activities ang pumapailalim sa exploration for minerals?
Madam Chair, if I may request our Bureau Director, Attorney Cesar Ortega, to respond to the question of the Honorable Ontiveros. Madam Chair.
Yes, Chair. Thank you. Director.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Senator. Ang mga activities po na sumasailalim o kasama sa exploration ay mainly drilling. There will be drilling of holes to find out if there are sufficient minerals underground or underneath that may be of commercial quantity. So it is limited to exploring the mineral content beneath the surface, Your Honor.
Salamat, Madam Chair. So itong nasaksihan po na considerable earth movement, mountain quarrying activities, land development, building construction. Pwede ba silang sakupin ng simpleng drilling lamang?
Madam Chair, Honorable Senator, with respect to these mining activities, this is within the turf of the MGB. NCIP, it would be improper for NCIP to give an opinion on this because this is within the jurisdiction of the NR and the MGB, Your Honor.
Without pronouncing on the legality of the MGB issued certification. I'm sorry, no, it was NCIP. Di po ba? NCIP po nag-issue ng certification
For the exploration,
for exploration. Opo. So, dahil galing naman sa commission, yung certification precondition, at sabi nyo nga yung activities na pumapailalim sa exploration na pinapayagan ng certification precondition ay drilling, ano pong opinion nyo dun sa nasaksihan ng Municipality of Gutalak na itong mga ibang activities ang nangyayari? Pinapayagan ba ng certification precondition for exploration itong mga ibang activities na ito, Madam Chair?
Sorry.
May I respond to that?
Please do, Director.
May I put it in proper context, Your Honor? Once the exploration activity will show that there are commercial, that the minerals underground are of commercial quantity, they will apply for MPSA, Mineral Production Sharing Agreement. And this would require another process of FPIC. Kapag pumayag po yung katutubo, another CP will be issued by the NCIP. Now, as regards to what kind of exploratory activities are necessary, this is within the turf of the MGB.
I understand that, Director, Madam Chair. Ang premise ko lamang po ay mukhang, at least batay sa unang pag-uusap ko sa municipal government, kaya ako nga po ikinukonsulta sa inyo, Nina Chair, mukhang ang batas ng IPRA ay nilabag mula sa simula. It seems to me, layperson sa shop ninyo, na ang considerable earth movement ay hindi drilling lamang. Na ang mountain quarrying activities ay hindi drilling lamang. Na yung land development ay hindi drilling lamang. At ang building construction sa area ay hindi drilling lamang. So, I think reasonable conclusion na itong mga activities na ginagawa na ay hindi drilling lamang. Kaya labag sa certification precondition for exploration. Tama po ba ang aking interpretasyon o mali po?
Maaari po, Your Honor, maaari pong tama, but as far as NCIP is concerned, those are mere reports and we haven't even yet conducted validation activities.
Salamat, at least doon sa kabukasan na maaring tama yung interpretasyon ko. Opo, ito po ay mga reports. The Commission has yet to conduct investigation activities, pero doon pa lang sa November 2022 na sulat ni Mayor Kimbo sa NCIP Region 9, copy furnished then NCIP Chair Kapuyan, nag-identify na po ang good mayor ng discrepancies sa exploration permit tulad nung kawalan pa at that point in time ng certification precondition. So, ibig lamang sabihin para sa akin, Director, Madam Chair, early on, nagre-raise na po ng mga tanong at mga issue ang LG. Kumbaga, hindi po sila nagkukulang mag-reach out sa commission para hingiin siguro yung tulong po ninyo dahil kayo nga po yung champion ng kanilang constituent indigenous people or LUMAD sa loob ng national government. And lastly, Madam Chair, paano po sinisiguro ng NCIP na yung mga leader na pumipirma ng MOA ay kinakatawan talaga nila yung will ng indigenous people, Madam Chair?
May I respond to that, Madam?
Please, Director.
nakapalaman po sa FPIC process yung proseso ng how to determine the validated decision makers. Isa pong step yun o stage sa the entire FPIC process. Inaalam po ng komisyon kung paano magdesisyon ang community base sa kanilang customary law. Kapag ka natukoy po yun kung paano, yun ang pinapatupad na proseso sa customary law, depende sa kung ano ang napag-usapan nila sa assembly, Madam Chair.
Yes, Madam Chair. So napakahalaga po yung mga assembly sa karamihan, kung hindi man lahat, ng customary law implementation sa panig ng indigenous people, kaugnay ng sino mang ibang entities na gustong pumasok sa mga di umanong development project through the facilitation of NCIP. I'm trying to bring up my notes dun sa pagpupulong namin ng municipality of Gutalak, pero apparently may mga ilang difficulties din po, Director, dun sa determination or sa validation kung yung mga pumipirma, or there are some questions at least. Madam Chair, may budget din po ang NCIP and I'm sorry. And lagi naman po, Madam Chair, Director, nakakahanap ng suporta talaga ang NCIP dito sa Senado or sa buong Kongreso dahil napakahalaga po ng trabahong ginagawa ninyo. Lastly po, paano nyo sigurado na walang intra-tribal dispute kung papayag or hindi sila papayag sa pagmimina sa ancestral domain nila, Madam Chair?
May I respond, Madam Chair?
Please, Director.
Yeah, if there are conflicts between within the community, the default action is to conduct conflict resolution through customary law. Nang sa gayon ay walang mangyaring pag-aaway sa dulo.
Salamat, Director, Madam Chair. Maganda po talaga, kinikilala talaga ng IPRA yung conflict resolution through customary law para hindi magkaroon ng away. I really encourage the Commission to look into this case being raised not just by Senate but LGU Gutalak dahil mukhang nagkakaroon na nga ng away. Hindi naman ito bagong kwento pag may papasok na mining company sa isang ancestral domain na yun naman talaga ang pinaka highly mineralized sa ating bansa. Maya't maya ang mga tactic na ginagamit ay counter-organizing, divide and rule, pag-aawayin ng ang tribo laban sa isa't isa. Pero lastly, gusto ko lang i-encourage pa rin ang NCIP na kung titindig talaga kayo sa bawat komunidad ng constituents ninyo para sa kanilang desisyon tungkol sa magmimina ba o hindi ba magmimina, hindi ba magmimina or magmimina, at kung magmimina, ano bang terms ayon din sa kanilang customary law. Kung titindig kayo kasama nila, gaano man ka-conflictual yung situation, paano man ang posisyon ng isang Florgenmar or ng MGB for that matter, you will find support here in the Senate dahil nandyan na yan sa Konstitusyon at nandyan na yan sa IPRA. Salamat po, Director, Chair. Salamat, Madam Chair.
Thank you po.
Okay, kasi mamatay na si Secretary Rex. Hindi. Biro lang kasi hindi pa tayo nagla-lunch break. Pinagpilitan natin to carry on. Thank you. So as requested, NCIP to provide an updated report. In the meantime, may isang programa na kailangan ko rin ng report, nakalimutan ko. Ito yung Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program ni Senator Go. Kung maaari lang mag-update, it was initiated in the previous administration during the COVID pandemic to avoid the overcrowding in urbanized cities. This program continues to occur with a budget of 834 million. Can you report as to its output? Kasi walang report dito sa amin kung ano yung mga accomplishment. Binanggitin nyo kanina na maraming natulungan, pero nakikita natin may OPLAN pag-abot, may assistance to communities. Kailangan may numbers tayo rito dahil budget hearing po to eh.
Madam Chair, yung sa BP2 in its original form, the annual target was 4,572 individuals. We were able to accomplish 3,356 of that. Now, what we did now is to create that pag-abot to expand the yung catchment niya. Wala pang output si pag-abot because bago-bago pa lang po siya. It ran for a pilot and then now we're scaling it up. Pag-abot will stand on BP2. That's the parang the common name niya na now kasi we're reaching out to families in street situations.
It's fairly clear. Yung assistance to communities, hindi namin maintindihan. It sounds like every other thing that you're doing.
No, ma'am. Di ba, when we bring home the community, it's really everything the department does. It's quite common. Pag binalik kasi yung pamilya doon sa probinsya, babalik yan dito pag hindi sinusuportahan. So we have to make sure that there are inputs there and we work with the local government unit so that they can assist that family. The community will assist that family, no? Meaning, we give the family the livelihood input, then babantayan nila.
Okay, ang kailangan ko numbers. Magkano nagastos sila na natulungan? Tig-ilan ang naibigay? Just give us the information.
Madam Chair, off the bat, of the 3.5 billion that is allotted for this program, 1 billion or 30%.
Hindi tayo nagkakapareho sa numbers. Ang number ko para sa Balik Probinsya, 834 lang.
Madam, iba ulit yung cut-off natin. Ito yun eh.
Hindi kasi yan yung GAA hindi magbabago ata.
Number of families served. Madam Chair, this is the actual one that I'm holding for fiscal year of 2023.
Maybe I'm the one who's wrong. Sige.
Madam Chair, what we will do is we will, for the record, the allotment is 3.565B, of which obligation is already at 1 billion. That's a third of it. 565 billion.
Okay. Can we just get the details on the expenditure of that, the status of that fund?
We will, Madam Chair, will submit it accordingly.
Tapos the other the most radical deduction is the Juvenile Justice Council, ano? Yun ang itatanong ko. Last na to. That's it. I don't think there's any other agency that needs.
Madam Chair, from the ED explained to me that that was also a congressional initiative, but the JJWC people are here. Madam?
Ay, sorry.
Yes, ay may lang. Nabanggit po kanina, Madam Chair, na yung BP program, parang i-expand yata nila, no? Kasi yung BP program, it was based po sa executive order ni former President Duterte, and we had a resolution dito po sa Senado. We adopted it. At nabanggit ni Secretary Rex kanina na i-expand nyo po.
Yep. That's why we are waiting for another executive order to come out from the Yes, that will widen the services like transitory housing. Kasi yung mga pamilya nasa kalsada na ho and they're really bound to go home. So we're just waiting for the executive order to come out anytime soon to expand from the original executive order. Nothing has been deleted. We just added more so that we can utilize the fund to its maximum.
Nobody's question, we just need a break.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Para may performance naman siya. Kasi wala akong nakikita. And then yun nga, yung juvenile justice, last and clearly least, dahil 82% reduction. Given if this is congressional insertion, this is one of those laws that's never been funded or implemented. Paano na to?
Yes, Madam Chair, magandang hapon po. Opo, tama po, no, yung pong pagbaba ng budget is primarily yung pong congressional insertion.
But how do we justify its restoration? Meron ba kayong output? May performance ba?
Yes,
Ganun pa rin katulad dati.
from the 100 million po na congressional insertion for this year, ang aming pong utilization as of August is 42.36 million. Utilized na po yun as of August.
It's less than half.
Opo. Pero meron po kasi kaming continuing funds from the 75 million din po last year that we're
Kaya
still...
pala kayo na-reduce kasi hindi na ninyo nagagastos yung karagdagan.
Opo. Yung po kasi may mga challenges po, particularly dun sa mga local government units.
We're aware that it's always a problem, but at 42% obligation rate, it's very, very hard to request an addition. Yes, Senator Ontiveros.
Salamat, Madam Chair. Isang follow-up po. Naalala ko yung isang difficulty na sinaside sa pag-implementa ng juvenile justice law, which I believe is a good law, ay yung walang facilities para hiwalay na i-custody ng DSWD yung mga children in conflict with the law, hiwalay sa mga adult offenders na deprived of liberty sa mga bilangguan. Hindi ba ginamit yung kahit congressional initiative para mag-construct or mag-rent ng ganyang mga hiwalay na facilities para maipatupad yung batas na yon at ma-rehabilitate yung mga child offenders?
Yung 100 million po ay primarily for support po to Bahay Pag-asa pero mainly po for operations. So yung pong 116 na mga Bahay Pag-asas, yung mga staff po nun ay tinitrain po hanggang sa kasalukuyan on integrated care management protocol. Tinuturuan po how to draft child protection policy. May mga provisions po for the children, lalo na po ng mga supplies, hygiene kits, no? So lahat po 'yun ay basically yung pong 100 million ay para po doon. So meron po kaming catch-up plan, ma'am, for the implementation of the remaining funds for this year.
Pakibigyan ng komite through our chair nung kopya ng catch-up plan at maigi kung approaching or hitting 100% utilization by December this year para sa ganyang mga activities in implementation of the law. Salamat, Madam Chair.
Yes po.
Thank you
Salamat.
very much. I think there's no further business. So at this juncture, we will await the submission of the information requested by the senators here present. And in the meantime, we also manifest the request of Senator Joel Villanueva to posit some questions in plenary. But in the meantime, we shall terminate the hearing. Mag-move ka. Oh, ikaw. In the meantime, I think there's a motion on the floor.
Yes, Madam Chair. Respectfully, I move to terminate the hearing of the proposed budget of the Department of Social Welfare and Development and its attached agencies. I so move, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Motion?
Second the motion.
Thank you very much. The motion to close the hearing at subcommittee I level and endorse it to the Mother Committee. I'm sorry, I'll have to repeat. With the motion to end the hearing on the budget of the Department of Social Welfare and Development here at Subcommittee I, duly seconded, we hereby endorse this budget to the Mother Committee of the Committee of Finance and thereafter to plenary. Congratulations. Thank you very much to everyone. And please try and eat your cold lunches. Thank you.